tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Yeah, it's interesting, dude. It just seems like there's just psyop upon psyop upon psyop upon psyop. And then you go, what is the deepest of the game? How deep does it go? That's my question. How deep does it go?
All the way to the tippy top, baby boy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, there's a reason we ain't getting that Epstein disclosure anytime soon.
Yeah, but don't we know everything? I keep saying this.
Basically.
Don't we know it all? Yeah. I mean, like, who would you be surprised if they were on the list? Who would surprise you?
I don't know. I wouldn't be really surprised by anybody at this point. I mean, I don't know. I think it's
Rogers,
I think we kind of already know what's going on. Like, we just get to fill in the blanks of whatever's left. I think at this point we just need prosecutions who are playing this silly game where they're acting like they need disclosure. I mean, the things we don't know might be some of the things like me and Austin talk about a lot, like a crazy SRA type, or like a violence or to the where isn't really pederasty and goes into the pedophile area, like 12 and under. Like, I think there's probably a lot more of that than they let on.
I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
The Epstein files were basically sold as, come on, they're high school chicks. They like it. They're into it. Ugh. Right? I mean, that's kind of, it's like they're showing you pictures of teenage chicks. And you're like, well, does it get dark? I mean, like, everyone forgets, the quote where they said that Bill Clinton never fooled around with the girls. He always fooled around with the boys. And nobody ever was like, what? Nobody ever said that. And they just didn't care.
And everyone just thinks it's like rape and stuff. What about killing a kid in the island? You don't think a kid went...
Exactly,
Yeah,
man.
you don't think a kid died or somehow got sacrificed? Like, no, everyone just thinks about, just rape. And, like, that's horrible. But there could have been some deaths there.
Some real dark
You had breeding camps, dude. There was weird stuff going on, man.
In Texas, New Mexico. He had a breeding ground in New Mexico.
The Zorro Ranch, man. I mean, you look at what Julianne Bryant? Shit, let me find out. Julianne Bryant was one of the Epstein victims. You look at what she claimed was happening to her when she was at the Zorro Ranch property, and it's basically
you just had Elon Musk just repeatedly cream pieing her over and over again.
No, but I mean, dude. I mean, like, look at that John of God, right? I mean, that's all he was doing.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's why, like, when he claims that she woke up right after being trafficked and spending time at Zorro Ranch at that property. She wakes up at the property paralyzed, naked on an operating table. And in the middle of the night, this happens. And she claims that each of the female victims that this happened to at the Zorro Ranch property, apparently this occurred basically due to the fact that he had like 20 different females at once that he was attempting to impregnate. And so he was actually apparently harvesting their eggs as well.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, exactly. So I think that they all, apparently, according to her, they all had this blue butterfly on them, on their person. They were essentially branded through this process. And she drew a parallel or a direct, actually, she just drew a straight line to, this blue butterfly being a symbol of Lilith, the first wife of Adam, and how this is apparently this policy of eugenics and transhumanism that has been like embraced at this occult level ideologically, which I find very interesting. But it's like this it's very much a part of like what I believe it was Maria Farmer claimed when Ghislaine and this what was it, like an exclusive Jewish fraternity and organization that they were a part of, and they would basically just berate her and she was excluded from any sort of events that took place, obviously, but it does seem like it's this small collection of elite interests involved with this lifestyle, and they're effectively like what they're participating in is legitimately the modern rebranded versions of eugenics, right? It's transhumanism.
Their own Babylon workings.
Their own Babylon working, yeah.
Yep.
Basically just jerking off on tablets in the desert with L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, right? Like, it's fucking crazy to me that people don't realize, like, the deep connections that L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons had to the occult. And, the Pasadena Lodge for the OTO as well. Like, they were deeply embedded in Aleister Crowley's Thelema, and so they were practicing this ideological framework on a daily basis, and apparently they inevitably began to sort of. There was like a rivalry that began as Jack Parsons was removed from the head of the lodge.
They were swapping wives.
Yeah, and that effectively happened.
I think the elites do that all the time. I think that those eyes wide shut parties is where everyone bangs each other's wives.
Even Michelle Obama is getting.
Come on. Come on. I don't even know if that. I mean, that's even another twist I don't even understand. But I mean, like when you look at Princess Di's kids, none of them look like Prince Charles at all. I wouldn't doubt it. She just they threw on mass and everyone just shot up the club. And then it's like, who's the daddy? Nobody knows. But the guy gets stuck with it and he has to raise them. And none of them look like the dad.
These guys are obsessed with bloodlines, so it only makes sense that they would go to sex parties and just pump and dump. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of component of planning to this, some intentionality. We're just going to pump and dump and do from this person to that person, almost like little breeding programs. I mean, kind of like what the Benny Gesserit from Dune. I mean, what is he being prescient here? Huh. I mean, it is weird when you start digging into these weird fucks that lord above us, the Rothschilds, the Brahms.
Hitler was like that. Yeah. The whole theory that Hitler was a Rothschild, not brought up by the OSS, which all the Hitler dick riders want you to believe, brought up by his niece he was molesting, was yelling to everybody he's a Rothschild.
Do you think the Epstein bloodline is terminated? You think it's done? No more Epstein bloodline?
What do you think?
So you think he had kids? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I've never heard of him having kids. I mean, you impregnate so many women. I'm guessing one of them's got to be out there with your kid.
Yeah, 100%.
Got to be.
I think so.
You would think so.
I mean,
how could we know if it's terminated when he's still alive out there fucking somewhere? I mean, come on. Like, I really believe he's still lingering out there somewhere.
What do you think that's
potentially a reality? I'm very much under the impression that as soon as he became willing to name certain co-conspirators, he effectively was hung out to dry. But I think that was mainly because he was overexposed in the first place, and he was really just mainly, I believe, a part of. Essentially, yes, he was running a sexual blackmail.
He wasn't
operation,
as big as everyone as he seemed to think he was.
Yeah, the Black Book was basically Ghislaine's Black Book anyway. It was her contact book, and so it's strange to me, especially considering how few people are even aware of the original Black Book being published by Nick Bryant and Gawker.
Yeah, and, it's so crazy, right?
By the way, Peter Thiel effectively destroyed Gawker.
A sexual extraordinaire.
Right? Yeah, and it's very interesting that
which makes you wonder what Peter Thiel and his connection to the vice president, like, what's that relationship?
Vance attributes his conversion to Catholicism to Peter Thiel. His conversion happened with, I want to say it was like months and like before he started taking millions of dollars from Peter Thiel for his political runs when he started political office, but he attributed it to like something like 6+ years prior while he was in college, but yet for some reason he didn't have the conversion until months before he takes money from him. I don't know. I've analyzed him and stuff.
He's interesting.
He might be an actor. I don't know. I get a little bit of feeling.
Vance or Thiel? Sorry, Vance or Thiel?
JD Vance.
I mean, really, but Vance more so is what I was speaking of here, really.
Well, that's what Thiel does in business too. He takes he invests. He just throws money out, and whatever springs up,
right?
He now controls.
But all those guys are actors. They're all LARPs, and what happens is when their brand gets burnt, as we saw with the Vegas shooter, right? He was starting to sue casinos. When you have that job, you're a ghost. And as soon as you start popping up, bang, Bill Gates, totally burnt. Like, we don't hear anything from Bill Gates anymore. Nothing. Like, he pops up here and there, but he's done. Out comes the guy from the new billionaire with the frosty tips, who he said looks like a gay magician who likes scat.
Larry
it could be Altman,
Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison shows up.
Okay.
And even I think he's already burned himself as a guy from ChatGPT. I think he already burned himself. They're already like, okay, people already hate you, dude, because of everything. So I think he may be gone too. But listen, guys, we're live from the Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Studios. Go to samtripoli.gold, use the promo code TINFOIL, and get in on the Precious Metals games for as little as $50 a month. And if you would like to see me live, I will be at Detroit, Michigan at the end of the month, then Tacoma, Washington. New dates going up all the time.
Comedy Chaos, don't forget about that one.
Comedy Chaos, too, dude. It is a murder show. People are loving it. We got killer lineup, so thank you guys. Grab your tickets now. They have a podcast called Already Dead. They were just on. We brought them back because they got nothing but heat. He is Jose Galison and Austin Wade Picard. How are you guys?
Doing good. Pleasure to be with you again. We have been looking forward to this one. This episode today is kind of the Grand Pumbaya. This is kind of the culmination of our months and months of our show and stuff. We've been circling around the schizo drain for quite a while, so we're glad to share it with you.
Well, I love talking to you guys. You know, I do a show with Austin. Jose, you are always welcome. It's just probably too late for you, but you are always welcome.
I literally messaged you last time, you dicks, and then I think no one checked the messages. I happened to be up late that night. But
we will send you it every time, and you can join us every time.
I'll be sleeping most times, but one of these days I'll make it.
You can join us. It's called Whatever This Is, and it's premium content and it is great. Super excited. So one more time, can you tell them where they can find you, and then let's get into it.
Well, it is a little bit complicated with us. For me, I have the No Way Jose podcast. Austin is the Underclass podcast. Me and him come together and we do two shows under the banner of these podcasts. They stream to both our platforms. We're on all the typical platforms. So either No Way Jose or Underclass, preferably both. But we put out every week, Already Dead. We do a live call-in show, and we also do a daily either me or Austin's hosting it, but it's always streaming to both our platforms at 10 a.m. Eastern. We do a kind of a daily, sometimes we dig into some old stuff, sometimes mostly current events, just kind of a daily live stream at 10 a.m. Eastern. But today we come with you bearing Gladio fruit. This is where kind of what we all read, all roads kind of lead back to Gladio. That's what our research keeps to come circling back to over and over again. And so I guess we can kind of start at some place. I can pass it off to Austin. I think he deserves an intro as well, probably.
You guys are two of the best researchers in the game. Austin, where can they find you?
All right, brother. First of all, I am not used to using Zoom. So the fact that I can't see you guys is throwing me off so bad, just because I'm so used to like looking into the eyes of the people I'm having a conversation with. But it's
okay. What you're gonna see is what's on camera here. It's gonna be what the people watching this are gonna see. So you'll see Sam when he's talking typically, and then.
Awesome, man. I'm just I'm kind of a victim of like I'm a very pattern oriented person, and so I get very used to certain. yeah, exactly. But hey, man. I think I'm just used to, again, like I love getting the reaction out of people. It's kind of what drives me to be more passionate in the moment, and I can't help myself. So, but it's okay, no worries at all.
Luckily for us, Sam's not quiet about it.
Yeah, no, not typically. But yeah, so you guys, of course, everyone, you can follow me at the Underclass podcast, and I pretty much, man, I've been doing some interesting deep dives as far as my research is concerned personally. Like the most recent solo project that I've done was a 4-hour episode on the Fort Bragg murders that happened in 1969 or 1970, like 6 months after the Manson murders, and it's very eerily similar as far as that I believe that there was essentially there were cult members of a local coven that were practicing the ideology of the Process Church of the Final Judgment, and you have actual members that were within this cult group that were effectively a part of what was called the corpse cadaver connection, is what it was called, and essentially it was this widespread drug trafficking operation, right? Very large scale. And this was happening during the Vietnam War, right? And it's very interesting because it seems as if there was a very well-established operation where they were utilizing these various military bases. And then also they had compromised certain local narcotics investigators as well from the local PD, but then also the MPs, right? So the military police were effectively compromised. And so they were facilitating this network of, and then they were also participating in the mass distribution domestically, as far as the heroin production and the trafficking was concerned, especially through Fort Bragg. But there were also other military bases that were prioritized. But anyway.
So you're saying military bases. I don't want to get too far from what you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, man. I shouldn't even be bringing this up,
it's fine.
To be honest.
It's fine.
Like, this was not at all planned.
It's fine.
I was just pitching my
because people don't realize when it comes with the military, like a lot of the free trade deals we have was struck by the military with these countries going, if you allow us to put bases in your country, you can tariff the fuck out of American goods and we won't tariff any of your goods. And why is that important? Because, I've always said this, man, if you really want to, you really do a deep dive into air quotes, terrorism, you'll realize that these guys are basically just children who grew up to be men in traumatized areas where their whole families were just annihilated and there is no work. The only work there is in these proxy armies, these proxy military groups, which we call ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all that stuff that we fund, we form, we train, we fund. So if you get rid of all the jobs here, what's left? The military. You want no jobs around, so everybody has to join the military. In California, more jobs have gone to the government than any other sector. That's not good.
I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, they bring in people to recruit you in high school.
Yep.
They're literally like, oh, do this. And it's a good pitch, though. Everyone thinks about it. They got you doing pull-ups. They got the strongest, buffest guy there. Every girl wants him. You're like, dude, I could be that guy.
You be a Dodger game. Hey, please welcome Colonel Xavier Guerrero. Oh my God. Okay, so let's get into what you guys want to talk about.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll bring it in and I'll pass it off to our resident, information extraordinaire individual over here, Austin. But Gladio. This is kind of what we've been honing in on. Gladio. Now there is the actual Operation of Gladio, and then there is like what colloquially people mean when we speak of it, particularly in these parapolitical circles. Now, Gladio was an actual operation that happened post World War II, kind of Cold War. The idea, it was a stay behind units. Essentially they left people behind, kind of to fight against communism. Assuming there was going to be a red wave coming soon. How this presents itself is probably most notably in like the days of lead over in Italy, where they were kind of funding. They were kind of essentially making the communists look bad by perpetrating false flag attacks. Not far be it for me to like commies, by the way, but either way, they were using false flag attacks to frame them, and there's many examples of this. So when we speak of Gladio, this is what we a lot of times are referring to. Essentially, the way I like to break it down for normies a lot of times is kind of like, hey, you ever heard about Operation Northwoods? Well, it's that actually you're being carried out. A lot of people don't know the chief of staff, Lemnitzer, when he actually wasn't the one who proposed the idea of Northwoods to Kennedy. He then gets shit canned, goes over to NATO, and then ends up being the one that's presiding over during the period of Gladio. So essentially, that is Gladio being carried out there. Now, what we wanted to kind of talk about is not specifically Gladio, but the idea of just kind of how everything kind of comes back to Gladio and how this is multifaceted thing. We sent you over notes, kind of the multiple themes. You can kind of go into Satanism. You can go into cults. You can go into, MK Ultra. I mean,
everything,
snuff films, like everything. It all ties into it. It all comes back to itself. And then also it's like tied into so many different things. Like we gave you a list of different things like I think probably the best one to kind of start with. I actually just did an episode on this on William Ramsey's show. Who he's great. We love him. We have him on the show quite frequently. But I covered the Dutroux affair on there, and this is probably one of the best examples of kind of what me and Austin are driving at here. This was the Dutroux affair was essentially Dutroux it's kind of a misnomer. The Dutroux affair. Dutroux was the kind of an unimportant character in the scheme of things. He really was. You can almost make parallels to the Epstein thing, except for he was kind of lower on the totem pole than even Epstein. But essentially, he was a guy who was kidnapping. He was procuring children for a network, a larger network. Come to find out that when you start digging into these networks, this is the same exact networks that are extremely tied in, if not indistinguishable from NATO. There were also, like, for example, the Brabant killings that happened in Belgium during that time. So these were all individuals. These are same people running cover for this sex trafficking ring that's happening in the background. And so you tie this all in, and you see these fingerprints of the military police in the area covering everything up. This also is a huge hub for NATO. I mean, there's a whole lot of different ways. I'll pass this off to Austin because I look like he's chomping at the bit to kind of dig into here.
Guys, it has to piss you off to watch crypto fly up in prices for a decade and you still done nothing. Okay, it makes sense. Crypto is complicated and it's really boring. Well, here's the good news. You don't have to know a thing about crypto to make the money like so many have. The CopyMyCrypto.com membership site shows you the exact cryptos that YouTuber James McMahon personally owns, which means you just got to copy him. It's like having a big brother who knows what he's doing. You don't need to know a thing about crypto or how to invest. You simply just copy along. So let me tell you about James. He runs the Crypto with James YouTube channel, which has over 50,000 subscribers. In the summer of 2020, he told his viewers to buy 26 cryptos. Had you put $100 into each one, it went on to be worth over $123,000. Of the 26 cryptos, his top pick, the one he singled out called Phantom, went up 692 times from when he said, okay, that one call alone retired a number of people, including guys in their 20s and 30s. Remember, this is public knowledge. You can go to YouTube and verify this yourself. So if you'd like to join the 2,800 members who copy James, then pause what you're doing right now and head over to copymycrypto.com/TFH. Okay, that's copymycrypto.com/TFH. That's TFH. You're not only find proof of everything I said, but my viewers get full access for just $1. Yes, you've missed out on Bitcoin, or you can keep buying some, okay? But there's over 2 million other cryptos. Do you really think you've missed out on all of them? Guys, don't waste any time. Go to the site and read it, okay? Once again, that's copymycrypto.com/TFH. It ended money worries for so many, it may just do the same for you. Hey, guys, real quick, I know you guys are on the go all the time, and one of the biggest problems you deal with when you're constantly busy is quality meals, getting the right fuel for your rocket. And so let me tell you about our good friends at Home Chef. That's right. Quality meal kits, the best out in the biz. Let me tell you about Home Chef. Meal kits often market themselves as easy meal prep solutions, but often disappoint with complicated, overlogged recipes that aren't worth the effort. Fortunately, Home Chef knows that struggle and delivers fresh, delicious meals that respect your time. Respect my time. Home Chef delivers fresh ingredients and chef-designed recipes conveniently to your doorstep to simplify your cooking experience. Users of the leading meal kits have rated Home Chef number one in quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. Okay, whether you prefer meal kits with pre-portioned ingredients, quick 30-minute recipes, oven-ready options, microwave meals, or dedicated family meals, Home Chef has everything you and your family need for a hassle-free, delicious dinner. Home Chef has over 30 options a week and several varieties of dietary needs. So here's what we need you to do, guys. For a limited time, a very limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 18 free meals, plus free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your next free box. Go to homechef.com/tinfoil. That's homechef.com/tinfoil for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. homechef.com/tinfoil. Must be an active subscriber for the free dessert. Thank you, Home Chef, for sponsoring this show. Real quick,
go ahead.
For those who aren't familiar, who is Dutroux?
Austin, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I got it. So Mark Dutroux, right? I think first of all, hold on, let me pull you guys.
Is
back.
there a reason why there's a sketching of him on Wikipedia and there's not an actual picture of him?
That is bizarre. There's plenty of pictures.
You can
that's weird
pull
to me
up the
too.
pictures for sure.
Well, with Wikipedia, they have to be Creative Commons images. They have the rights to, so it's possible that all the images of him, someone owns the rights to them.
Right. Yeah. So really, Mark Dutroux, he was arrested, but this basically what had happened was this country. It was a notorious pedophile, right? Is obviously who this was, but at the same time, like you have to keep in mind that there was when this was kind of disclosed to the public, it was originally like a lot of this was published in '96. That was describing, how this kind of took place when 4 little girls were kidnapped for the sex trade and exhumed from the dungeon prisons that became their tombs, basically. There's a political leader and his henchmen arrested for the contract murder of a government official. A child prostitution ring is exposed. And every day following, there are these like hints going in through as far as like public disclosure, hints of official cover-ups, police bungling. You have tampered evidence and judicial incompetence. You have the original judge Conrath was removed from the case. But the best way to kind of like because you have to also realize that Belgium in this time, it's completely ridden with it's been explained and described as a mafia-ridden banana republic. And so I kind of think that's
what country is this?
Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it's very interesting, especially in the terms of Gladio, because these Gladio countries that are very it's interesting. They're very overrepresented when it comes to, of course, these environments of destabilization and chaos, because and also just complete and total lack of public trust as well.
It's also the royals. They're landed royalty in a lot of these countries too. That's what's distinct about this is the aristocracy component. That these are nobles that can kind of exist from a foregone time, like before World War II when all the monarchies got swapped out, and now these are the individuals that are essentially untouchables that are carrying out these acts. For example, King Albert of Belgium was highly implicated in this whole affair.
Yeah, absolutely. And King Albert, I mean, he has some very interesting connections when it comes down to the Gladio, as far as like tying in Gladio, as well as the fact that Michel Nihul claimed that he had, videos of him, as far as just compromising videos of him sexually abusing young boys.
The Brabant killings, the Gladio attack I kind of referenced earlier, there were multiple people who claimed that was simply, those weren't just random killings. Those were targeted assassinations of individuals who had managed to get a hold of blackmail from this organization. Were intending on using it against the network.
Oh, dude. Michel Lelievre, he's a drug addict and this petty thief, right? He's an accomplice of Marc Dutroux. And it's very interesting, too, because Dutroux's wife, Michelle Martin, she's a former primary school teacher and the mother of his 3 children. And she admitted that in '95, she knew 2 small girls were incarcerated without food or water in a secret dungeon in the cellar of her home that they owned in Charleroi, which that's another thing, because all of his financial interests really, I think, are very much should raise red flags as well. And there was
not even to mention the 25 hair samples found in the dungeon, thus disputing the claim that they were able to starve to death and just no one checked on them. They left them there. There were other people, prominent people, likely coming down there and raping them and slinging them to other prominent people.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. And I actually discovered the fact that, they were potentially not they didn't starve to death. They were potentially killed in a snuff film. Is basically what was what the claim was. And so it was interesting because the wife, Michelle Martin, she says that she told police apparently that she visited the house to feed their dogs while her husband was in jail on car theft charges, but she was too frightened to feed the girls. And months later, Dutroux led police to the emaciated bodies of Julie Lugin and Melissa Russo, who were 2 8-year-olds who had been kidnapped more than a year before, and they were buried in the garden of another of Dutroux's homes.
God, dude.
So, but this accomplice, Michel Lilievre, he's a drug addict and petty thief, and he tells police that soon after his arrest, he tells the police that the girls had been kidnapped to order for someone else. The chief suspect was Jean-Michel Nihoul, a Brussels businessman, pub owner, and familiar face at sex parties. Now, while they had been in prison, Lilievre told the police that Dutroux and Nihoul met frequently in the exercise yard making plans. The judge investigating the case, Jean-Marc Connerat, he believed Nihoul was the brains behind the operation. But as the network began to unravel, Lilievre suddenly stopped cooperating, saying he had been threatened. And then there was this there's this journalist. Her name was Olenka Frankiel, and she's an investigative journalist who goes to Belgium right around this time, and she claims that she met Nihoul in a restaurant in Brussels, and he proclaims, "I am the monster of Belgium," he roared by way of greeting. He is confident he will never come to trial, and that the evidence against him will never be heard by any jury. During the course of the meal, he apparently grabbed her, tickling, and finally pulled her over on him in the restaurant booth until she had to appeal to her colleagues for rescue. And he says he'll never come to court. He said because the information he has about important people in Belgium would bring the government down. The monster of Belgium denies he's a pedophile, but seemed to enjoy his notoriety and demanded 1,000 francs for his story. They declined the offer, but they did need to offer Nihoul a right to reply to the accusations made by Regina Louf, who was a woman at that time. She was 33. I'm not sure how old she is now, but her testimony clearly raised a lot of it became a smoking gun, honestly. But Louf came forward after Judge Connerat made an appeal to victims of pedophiles to tell police what they knew. And so it gets very interesting because it was highly organized. The claims are big business for blackmail, obviously. A lot of money involved. In 96, it gets, honestly, man, it's one of the most disturbing and extraordinary cases that I've ever come across. And when you look at the organizers as well, I mean, it gets very
goes all the way to the Belgian prime minister. I actually kind of want to back it up to the Brabant killings because I think this kind of illustrates an interesting point. If you go to the prime minister, just to back up a little bit, there was this thing called CPIC, which was a political party. It created this Nouvelle de Jeunesse, which was like this publication. From there, that spawned off, what was it, the Westland New Post, which was this paramilitary organization, which it ends up carrying out the Brabant killings later. Come to find out, it was started by what was Latinus, I forget his Paul Latinus was his name. This guy was a part of the Sûreté from the start. He was, an informant of some sort, which the Sûreté was the Belgian intelligence. So this individual from the start, the founder of this entity, this essentially a Gladio entity carrying out false flag attacks in the future, was from the jump was part of Belgium intelligence. Not only that, later he then claims his mother claims that he was hired by DIA, which is a United States intelligence agency, and that he directly worked for Alexander Haig, which is like, so that is where you get all the way to the tippy top, where you get to like NATO right there. And this is the guy who created the Westland New Post, which is the entity, the paramilitary front, the intelligence front that was carrying out false flag activities in Belgium. And likely in to cover up sexual blackmail.
There is, Oli Demigard always talks about organizations who just travel around and commit false flag operations. Like they show up and that's their job. to create the atmosphere, the situation in which these things happen, which become high impact events. Remember the Area Grande, the bombing in England,
dude,
and then like
Operation Fast and Furious.
Yep, the Fast and Furious guns, baby.
Yeah, that was traced back to Fast and Furious in that operation, which is crazy. That came up when I did the episode on the Las Vegas shooting from 2017, because I think that
They
was
keep
very much
reusing that
tied
fucking place.
Yeah,
it's like involved in like 4 major ops at this point.
Where Vegas?
No, the Lone Wolf gun store or whatever, which is it keeps getting used in ops. The ops get exposed in the same exact place every fucking time.
It's so
But
crazy.
they also do use Vegas because of how much there's a organized crime footprint there, I believe, which is why Paddock was running the gun smuggling operation with a leader of the local organized crime syndicate that was running. Basically, it was for plausible deniability reasons that he was essentially he was the cutout for the intelligence apparatus that was in play as far as conducting the operation itself. And that was all exposed whenever Silkway Airlines, the Paddock-owned airline, this was flying in, smuggling weapons into O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. And Stephen Paddock himself went to meet one of the planes to accept them in through customs. And it's crazy to me. I forget the name of the, forget if he was a Russian mafia a mob member. I can't remember now who his name. I can pull up the notes in a moment. But honestly, I think the most important point is just the fact that they typically utilize Vegas as a. I think even Ted Gunderson claimed that one of the areas where children were being auctioned in the context of the Finders, I believe is what it was. Whenever that came up, Ted Gunderson, because of course Ted Gunderson describes the Finders as a CIA front, right? Established in the 1960s. I think that's proven actually through Athena Veronis, who I think was the fixer.
Don't forget about the Air America connection, because that ties it right back into our that connects it right back into our overarching thesis here, baby. Go ahead.
It really does prove out that there's honestly, man, it seems as if there's an international private intelligence network that has been strategically put into place. And I think that this all stems from Gladio, from the aftermath of World War II, setting up the Nazi rat lines strategically.
You're so right, dude. You're so
man,
right.
all of this, it's so strange because whenever this was set up, it very much proves that, oh, by the way, oh my God, I can't forget this, because I discovered earlier that apparently, my God, man, there's like all of these rogues, operatives that were a part of setting up the Gladio network, the Stay Behind networks. But there's a chronology of events that was basically outlined in Operation Gladio, the book by Paul Williams, and it's actually. I believe the title was Operation Gladio: The Unholy Alliance Between the Vatican, the CIA, and the Mafia. And I think there couldn't be a better example of how this was structured, right? And I think that also it brings perfectly into the conversation the aspect of the secret societies as far as
P2 lodges.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like to go back to a point you just brought up, this kind of like secret intelligence organization. I think like Mossad, CIA, MI6, they're just like storefronts. And like in reality, they all work together to protect the interests of the predator class.
Exactly. I think that these people, they don't recognize international borders, national borders, right? Generally speaking, man, in terms of intelligence and covert intelligence, especially, it's really one whole perverse network that leads into the other. And I think that's very much. I mean, even Epstein himself kind of proves that out, because at one point he'd even claimed that he worked for the CIA. I think Robert Maxwell was a layered operative who worked not only for Mossad but also CIA and Russian intelligence. I think they all kind of have like dual loyalties. And military intelligence is always involved with these various networks. It's interesting as hell because they all blend together as well. You have MK Ultra, right? You have the drug running aspect of it all, human trafficking, pedophilia, child pornography, prostitution, and all of them kind of coalesce to create this one single enterprise. As far as these networks are concerned, it's never limited to just distributing child pornography. They're going to also distribute snuff films.
It only makes sense. You got to think, if you already have this op that's carrying out, false flag attacks, and let's say you need sexual blackmail in order to insulate this network, protect them from, information attacks from the outside. It only makes sense. You already have people carrying out awful acts, murdering people and stuff. Wouldn't it make sense to also have them, do the other awful acts? Wouldn't it also make sense to now create some sort of, network through which you can transport your drugs, your humans, your all different things, and it becomes this layered op to where it's not really. This is what Gladio is. It's this whole network of, people carrying out these awful things, people super in the clique. This is whatever it is, the people that sit above us in shadow. That's what this is. It gets really dark, especially when
it gets really dark because as we get more and more liberal and we accept certain things, you have to get darker and darker to control this stuff, and then it gets into God, fallen angels, Kronos, Black Cube, Saturn worship, child sacrifice, the story of Kronos, all that stuff.
This all came up. Yeah, all of that comes up in the context of the Kincora scandal and in regard to the murder of Brian McDermott, I believe was the name of the boy, but it very much brings into light the reasons behind, at least the potential reasons behind the ritualistic purposes of blood sacrifice, but more than that, unfortunately, child sacrifice. But it typically involves aspects of trauma-based mind control, which I find very interesting as well, because it tends to come up so very often in context to not only Kincora, but also the Finders, also Dutroux. Also the Presidio. You gotta think of
perfectly that blends into cults and the like, so we gotta think MK Ultra at one point, hanging out in the universities, doing this type of research, and at some point, we have the church committee, and we're not doing MK Ultra anymore. And now we have all this string of cults. Shortly after, we get this string of serial killers. I don't know. I think maybe there's some parallel. There's maybe some conclusions or implications to be drawn.
I think you're totally right. I think. When we get into like Martin Bormann and how he creates this kind of network, which establishes kind of how like corporations operate. You get into the Bilderberg Group, which is basically where Nazis and the Western banking cabal came to basically work on how can we work together while we secretly try to fuck each other over. Bilderberg Group comes from Nazis. And so you're telling me this Gladio stuff, that's probably just straight up Nazi shit right there.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, and that's why it ties directly in with Colonia Dignidad, torture colony.
Dude, I got to tell you something I found out yesterday, Austin, and this ties in perfectly into this. I found out yesterday that, this ties into the whole cults, MK Ultra connection here that I was kind of making. Jonestown, apparently the land upon which it was at in Guyana, the 2 years prior, literally right before they took over the land, like it was owned by the government, and it was being trained for it was used for Operation Shalom, where they took black Green Beret soldiers and trained them in what I don't know particularly. One of those individuals that was trained there within the 2 years prior to the Jonestown, debacle in Guyana on that very same land was Colton Westbrook, the spook that ended up being the person who was running the Symbionese Liberation Army, that was known for Patty Hearst and all that. That's he was being trained right before then, and then in MK Ultra op, Jonestown goes off right then. I just was talking about false memory syndrome yesterday, and that was like, holy shit, no fucking way. Austin's gonna cream his pants.
Hold on.
Yeah,
we
threw a lot at you.
Guys, pump the brakes. Hold on. Hey, guys, real quick. Are you losing your hair because you live near power lines like I do? Well, guess what? It doesn't have to be that way. You can fight back, and the best weapon against hair loss is our good friends at Hims. Well, that's right. Let me tell you about Hims. Men, if you've lost your hair, you doesn't mean you can't find it again. Try Hims Hair Loss Solution, and you'll be joining hundreds of thousands of subscribers who found their hair again. Hims provides you with convenient and quality access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. It's just that easy. Choose from personalized chewables, oral sprays, and serum treatments to find what works best for you. Answer a few questions, and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatment to ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, and they can help you get your confidence back too with visibly thicker and fuller hair. I am in, dude. I am so in. Okay, so here's what we need you to do. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/tinfoil hat. That is HIMS.com/tinfoil hat for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/tinfoil hat.
Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation and a healthcare provider who will determine if prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
So you're saying that the Sudanese was it what?
Sudanese Liberation Army.
Okay,
yeah,
so where did Jonestown happen? What is the country?
Guyana.
Guyana used this territory.
But it was on the border of Argentina as well, I believe.
Which is Nazi stuff right there.
Yep.
They were training black soldiers.
Weren't there rat lines there too, Austin? I believe you've dug into that before. They use it for rat lines before that, I believe. Maybe. I might be wrong.
Like what is interesting is that the first whenever if you remember
it just keeps getting used for spooky shit. But go on.
Oh my god, man. Like I'm telling you, man, it becomes very strange because it basically it proves out that the way that Jim Jones acquired the land itself is very interesting as well, because it was the temple established offices in Georgetown, the capital of Guyana, and conducted numerous meetings with the Prime Minister, Forbes Burnham, and other Guyanese officials. In 1974 is when the first group of People's Temple members arrived in this remote location in Guyana. It was December of 74. And that's when they started operating the People's Temple Agricultural Project there that would soon become Jonestown. But in 76, Temple member Michael Proxt requested that Guyana's Prime Minister Forbes Burnham receive Jones as a foreign dignitary along with other high-ranking U.S. officials.
Whoa!
Yeah. And by the way, Jim Jones, he had effectively taken over the welfare financial center in Mendocino County, which, by the way, right near Fort Bragg, which always tends to come up in regards to this because of the psychological warfare center, the JFK Psychological Warfare Center.
And he had his own kill squads. He literally had his own kill squads.
The Red Brigade
to tie it back into Gladio. He literally had his kill squads there.
Who?
But I think they Jim Jones.
Jones had a kill squad?
Yeah, he had like a tiered hierarchy. Essentially had like all the minorities and the poors that were like the members of the cult. And he had these like guys who were all spooks and former military and whatever that were his Red Guard, you know?
But he was allegedly inspired by William Branham. And this ties directly into Paul Schaefer's vision for Colonia Dignidad as well. And the same exact thing happened there as far as the investigators who went in, finally breached, the fenced-in, razor-wired perimeter of Colonia Dignidad in Chile. They go in there and one of the primary investigators claimed that these people looked entirely mind-controlled, as if they were zombies, right? And so it's very interesting because that was a similar thing happened in Guyana as far as...
Yeah, they were giving daily medication to these guys. They were zonking them the fuck out.
And was it you guys that came on that said that you felt like the people who went to Jonestown were somewhat leftovers from these MK Ultra projects.
Oh yeah,
that they were trying to basically just eliminate, funnel them into there, and then they clean up their tracks.
Well, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the quick and short of it is that essentially around the time that it was like essentially it was getting ready to go live, if you catch my drift, things were about to pop off. For some reason, there was kind of a push for some of the people stateside to get them over, and some of them, I think it was successful to get them to Guyana. These were ones, there were certain individuals, Austin, I know you dug into this more, so I know you know what I'm getting at. There were certain individuals that, looked like they were trying to, essentially tie up loose ends there with that op.
Yeah, that was, I know you, Bo Gritz, right, who was, he's tied into a lot of these, like, if you remember when I came on to talk about Ruby Ridge, right, he was Colonel Gritz, Bo Gritz was the individual who went to attempt to have a conversation because he's a former Green Beret. He was going to have a conversation with Randy Weaver and attempt to talk him down and remove him from the property before they just massacred the rest of the family. And but James Gordon Gritz was his name. He was a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer and worked in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. And following his formal retirement at the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in '79, he also happened to train the Afghan Mujahideen in America on behalf of the government.
In America!
So that goes to point out the fact that we have domestic black sites that none of us are read in on or acknowledging or aware of in general. And this has been a policy of, the covert, intelligence apparatus for as long as they've been in existence. And this is the other thing that I was going to point out, that the timing of the CIA being formed in the first fucking place seemed like, and it was put into these terms specifically, that potentially the CIA was formed to manage Gladio. I swear to God, this was legitimately how this was put forward, especially considering Alan Dulles, what the fuck's the other one? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point being is that they are consistently utilizing this playbook, all right? And it's a recycled tactic. And what they do is they have these clandestine black sites, which I think I even mentioned on whatever this is the other day, as far as the connection to the JFK assassination and how JFK and RFK discovered upon taking office, like shortly after.
The Cuban training camps, yeah.
Yeah, that they had these black sites that were essentially they were functioning as domestic training camps for these Cuban exiles, right? And that I'm sure it wasn't only limited to Cuban exiles because
now think about that concept, and we tie it back to what we just talked about with Operation Shalom, which was being perpetrated on a black site, which I think we could probably call it a black site, where Jonestown was carried out a couple years later.
Exactly.
Colton Westbrook was there receiving training of some sort, and then it just so happens shortly after that, I don't know, I forget the specific time when the SLA stuff happens, but SLA, the Symbionese Liberation Army, was a left-wing group in America. What was it? Austin, you probably know the dates better than I would, but it was in the 80s, I think, right?
70s.
70s, okay. And that was essentially, there was this well-to-do lady, Patty Hearst. She was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army group, this paramilitary group is what they frame themselves at. When you look into them, it looks very fishy. It looks like a most frontiest of fronts that ever fronted. Just kind of looks like a group. Yeah, like not real. Like this essentially.
What do you think the purpose of that was?
Whatever Colton Westbrook was being trained for. Now, this guy Colton Westbrook was also someone who was part of Operation Phoenix, which was essentially kill squads in Vietnam. Essentially the same exact Gladio in Vietnam.
He was brought back to set up the pipeline to Berkeley.
Yep.
UC Berkeley, the campus.
And he comes and he's working
where fucking
in Berkeley,
Patty Hearst was tied up in the pipeline, going to the institution where Donald Cinque de Vries happened to be. Housed, where guess what? Oh, they just so happened to be, practicing this well-established operation called behavioral modification research, where they were conducting at this facility.
Yeah, and they had Patty Hearst. You pay attention; it's literally brainwashing being perpetrated to the public. That's the big thing about her. She got taken, kidnapped. They were fucking with her. And you can watch the process of her being brainwashed throughout it. So, yeah.
Man. It is crazy. And by the way, the seven-headed SLA Hydra Light Cobra symbol that was used as the logo and featured in the group's publication that were then distributed around campus in support of the SLA after Tanya the Revolutionary made her full transition into this new formed personality that was not at all who she was prior to being essentially like they were operating on MK Ultra techniques as far as what they were doing to her. They were locking her into a closet, sexually abusing her, but keeping her in the dark. They would provide her a flashlight when they would give her specific documents to read that were like essentially mind control manuals, which is very interesting. So,
and the person who did this was trained on the same exact black site within a couple years prior to Jonestown. So,
no, hold on.
So crazy, man.
So who is this other chick you're talking about?
Patty Hearst is Tanya the Revolutionary. She made this transition. Yeah, it was while she was abducted. And
she got DID'd in real time. Dissociative identity disorder.
She got DID'd in real time, exactly. Yep. Dissociative identity disorder, and they basically implemented an alter personality. And if you go back to Dutroux and the X dossier, you realize that that's what they do. They implement all of these different alternate personalities. That's what dissociative identity disorder is. It's a product of multiple of MID, right? Multiple identity.
One example I like to use that displays this, and it is a little crude, but I think it kind of because I think if you wrap your head around it or try to, you can kind of understand. Now, Regina Loof, which character we've talked about a lot, the Dutroux affair, as Austin was saying, when she started exhibiting alternate personalities, her pimp groomed those personalities, and eventually she got to a point where she had multiple, one of which, the one I frequently bring up, is one I believe it's called like the whore, and so that would be like the slutty personality, and then she had ones that was more of like a childlike personality, where like, and even then the pimp would almost take on like a father-like personality, so it almost makes you think like, if you think of it in generational terms, now what happens with this personality that's the whore? What happens 10-15 years in the line? Is this person that's now a pimp or a procurer in some sort of thing, and now they're hurt people. I think it's a kind of a way to wrap your head around how DID works, brainwashing people for roles, and then what roles they take on later. It's kind of sick and twisted to think about, but if you are a child, we all need love. If you're put in a situation like that, you kind of are almost forced to create separate entities and somehow be able to fragment those two things out, because how do you have someone that's supposed to be taking care of you do this to you, and how are you supposed to then believe that they love you at the same time? And on the flip side, how are you supposed to do that to someone and also be able to, because it goes both ways for humans, that we need to give love and receive love. So the perpetrators, the people victimizing them likely were people that were in some sort of network like this when they were younger too. So it's dark stuff.
It was her grandma that brought her into this fucking network and facilitated the abuse from the beginning, which is so often the case, where it also that happened within the context of the Concora scandal and the Brian McDermott ritualistic.
I think there was a famous 60 Minutes story about a girl who accused her grandmother of basically selling her into sex slavery, and like nobody believed her. And then it turned out to be totally true. She said all this stuff. She broke it all down. And the grandma was arrested. It's like unbelievable. It's like
it's
one of those
like the False
stories
Memory
on
Syndrome
like
Foundation.
Australia. It's like 60 Minutes Australia does great work. What the United States 60 Minutes used to do. The Australian one, they'll do a story on child sex trafficking in a heartbeat. Ours will be like, it's not real. Trust us. We're 60 Minutes. They're so full of shit, dude. But they did a story about her grandma. This girl said, my grandma was pimping me out to this. She wouldn't let me see where I was going. She'd pimp me out. Like, dude.
My God.
Awful,
it reminds me of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation that Jose had recently brought up, because guess who? What? The parents that created the foundation were legitimately being accused by their daughter of sexually abusing her. Right?
Like every spook that shows up on the foundation is like a super clicked up MK Ultra spook.
MK Ultra and psychological operations as well. But to the point you made about Regina Loof, X1, man, she suffered from multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, and she told how many of her alters or alternative personalities still had the same age as when they were created, or how her handwriting differed depending on which alter was active.
Whoa.
As is obvious from her background of extreme abuse. These symptoms started at an early age, and interestingly, her pimp, as Jose said, not only wasn't surprised when he first encountered X1's alters, he actually cultivated them. So DID was created in X1 because of her background of extreme abuse, but what did this abuse actually involve? First, there was the psychological aspect. X1 never received any support or love from her parents, her grandmother, Tony, her primary abuser, or any of her other abusers, especially Tony and the grandmother, who acted as her pimps, indoctrinated X1 with the belief that she was a nobody, that besides Tony, nobody cared about a little whore like her, that she was too stupid to become anything else than a prostitute, and that love is something you never get for free. Furthermore, X1 was blamed for just about anything that happened to her, to other children in the network, to her pets, or even to those who abused her. For example, if X1 had given fellatio to her pimp, which wasn't satisfying enough, he would beat her up, yelling at her that she was worthless.
I'll kill everybody, dude. I'll kill everybody. I'm not.
It gets way worse. This is such a fucked up story.
I'm not even kidding, dude. I will kill everybody.
Yeah, I've had to stop covering this on my show a few times. Just stop and take a breather because it's dark stuff. This still take your breath away.
I've never been more affected in my life.
I'm not
and
even
then after I read the X dossier,
it's like it's just like you listen to this stuff and you're just like, there's just such a pushback from people, not because they don't necessarily believe, but they just can't come to grips with that there are apex predators around us, and they can't come to grips with it. It's unless it happens right to their kid, they get nothing involved. This fucking town I live in, LA, this fucking comedy scene, all turn their head. They're all ready to it's like so crazy if you say the comedy scene. Like if you're a good looking white guy, they have no problems with taking you out with just an accusation, no fucking evidence. But anybody else, dude, good luck. Dude, good luck. God, everything is lip service, and there's fucking hunters everywhere. It's so sad. Like, it's so sad. It's just like, I can't even begin to think about it because it gets me so sad. Like, foster kids, man. Will you listen to Jared from Subway? What do you say? Slit that guy's throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that reminds me a lot of like the Finders Cult stuff. I think you got a little bit sidetracked, Austin, but I figured I'd rein you back in because I believe Air America that ties it into drug trafficking, if I recall correctly, because it was Air America that was used for a shitload of the drug trafficking through Mena, Arkansas, and the like. But yet at the same time, this is also what was it? Miriam Petty was clicked up, the one who ran the Finders Cult, which it looks like this was there's all sorts of documents that came out that look like it was a CIA covered up op. It looked like there was something the CIA had to cover up. I mean, I know, very reminiscent of kind of like a certain case in the news lately. So we had this essentially was an entity that seemed to be methodically kidnapping children and getting them to individuals. There was files that were found. I'll pass it off to Austin because I know you know all the details here. But there were files found on essentially the systemization of how they would procure children all across the world. There were files for different countries, and then obviously this thing ends up being covered up because the CIA is implicated in some way. So I mean, you can kind of spin your wheels from there. But yeah, I'll pass it off to you, bud.
Man, yeah, it basically on the premises of the Finders properties in DC that the U.S. Customs Office they held a raid and they brought in U.S. Customs agent Ramon J. Martinez, right? And he went in and actually carried out this raid with various members of the local investigation team, basically from the DC Metropolitan Police. But it's very interesting because what they find at the property becomes extremely disturbing, right? Because we're talking, it seems like blood rituals and sexual orgies involving children were definitely involved, as well as unsolved murders, completely tied into the organization itself. But Yeah, so
didn't one of the children have like essentially like a prolapsed anus or something along with? I know this is awfully awful to say, but like there was forensic evidence that was showing that these children were being molested. The children that were found with the initial individuals. Yeah,
man, I'm telling you, man. Like when they were originally arrested in Tallahassee in '87, I think is when it was. But when they were arrested in Tallahassee, they had direct communication instantly to the organization because everyone in DC just shit their pants and the cover-up began to take place. And unmarked white vans started showing up at the finders' properties and at the warehouse specifically, seeing men leaving and piling boxes into the vans. And so very much they were tipped off, and they were moving most of, I would think, the most evidence with any real substance. And so it's very interesting, though, because it was Customs Agent Martinez who stood by while this raid was being conducted on the W Street apartments and then the Finder's warehouse as well. And during the execution of the warrant at the W Street apartments, Ramon J. Martinez was able to observe and access the entire building, seeing large quantities of children's clothing and toys. The clothing consisted of diapers and clothes in the toddler to preschool range. No children were found on the premises. There were several subjects on the premises. Only one was deemed to be connected with the finders. The rest were renting living space from the individual. This guy's name was Stuart Miles Silverstone. And by the way, these individuals just so happened to have direct connections to the Jesuit order and Georgetown University, which is very interesting as well, because they were tied into a babysitting service that was attempting to procure children. So there you go. This is a part of what the finders would do. Their playbook was to infiltrate and embed themselves into these child care, avenues, right, where they would just gain more access to these vulnerable children.
What was her name that was busted in Haiti? Got tried, found.
Silsby.
Yeah, she's literally working for Florida's
Amber Alert.
Amber Alert. And listen, I'm not a Tate Brothers guy, and if they were involved in dark shit because they do have CIA connections, then fuck them, okay? Yep. But the notion that this guy, that this prosecutor's going after the Tate Brothers when he didn't do jack shit with Epstein or any of that stuff is just disgusting. And this is where it's getting to, dude. The population is becoming way more savvy than the elites can handle. And we're starting to see the flaws in what they're doing and the hypocrisy. And people are waking up to it because it's absolute bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've been recently reeling over True Detective, and I think that the end of that show kind of really puts it well, like does justice for this concept here. The idea that, two things. For one, the idea of not looking away or not subjecting yourself to complacency. I think people are waking up to this stuff, and I think people are realizing that this is all off their back. You were literally fleeced for this to happen. Like the powers above you, this is all off of your back. This is all off of your dime. This is extracted from your energy. Literally, this at its root, Gladio is strategy of tension. The idea of a problem, reaction, solution, or whatever. The idea that we're trying to evoke a reaction from you. They are literally psychic vampires, and vampires, even in the most literal sense, up into including your money, your energy, your everything, and all of this is so that they can rape your children and do it with a smile on their face. And I don't know, there's not much more despicable in the world. And I think people need to start waking up to that and realize that the people in power that you seem to respect, a lot of them are more tied into this than you would expect. Like even somebody, I'm going to make people upset, but Trump, one of his best buddies was Roy Cohn, who was all tied into fucking, sex trafficking networks of his own. So like that's a whole other rabbit hole that we didn't even go into.
Listen me up, dog. I mean,
here's the thing, guys.
I got that right now. Roy Cohn he came up in Kinkora. He's one of the biggest pieces of shit of all time. And I can't believe that anybody respects or continues to have conversations with Roger Stone. Get the fuck out of here. Roger Stone, he was compromising people with sexual blackmail.
All you need to know is physiognomy there, dog.
Yeah, 100%, man. It blows my mind, honestly, but, No,
it's like super sad. It's super sad. Really, and like, if at this point you're not a political nihilist and politically atheist, Like if there's things you like, let's say Thomas Massey moves to abolish the Federal Reserve, right? I like that. Okay, I'm gonna cheer that on. But guess what? If Trump sends all this money to Israel, I'm gonna scream and shout how much this is bullshit. And you all giving me shit on the internet right now because I don't trust the fact that this guy's gonna try to. They're going to get you, dude. This is how they get you. They get you to be okay with them violating someone's constitutional rights for things you don't like pro-Palestinian protests on campus, which are most likely funded by Israel or the Zionists to call us crazy. But you're like, he said illegal. Dude. How many times have we seen everything we've talked about so far in this show for the last hour is about how they basically have agent provocateurs in everything?
100%, man. Yeah, and that's what I find so interesting about, that connection to Roy Cohn, because especially with Kinkora, because he sexually abused a man by the name of Richard Kerr, and this is a fact. Like honestly, so anytime you go back and you see Trump saying, "Where's my Roy Cohn?" It hits a little bit differently.
Does he say that really?
100%. Yeah, Roy Cohn was a political hatchet man, basically, and he was running, this human compromise operation. And
he got his start too with the communist thing too. Just trying to just he was. Known for his loyalty to the anti-communist movement, with the
Gladio, to what we've been talking about this entire time. Literally, he got busted for this, and he said, Austin might know the quote better, but something along the lines of herder, it was to stop communism, so it's okay. His sexual trafficking network, that was what the context was here. Oh, it's okay because communism.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he said. Let me pull it up. It's Roger Stone and Roy Cohn.
The worst kind of people.
It's one of the most ridiculous things because basically, keep in mind
if we don't fuck your kids, the commies will.
Jeez. It's my God, so insane, dude.
Did you guys watch The Apprentice? Did you watch the film? Not the TV show, the film. Okay, because it goes deep. No. It goes pretty deep into Roy Cohn. It's fascinating. It kind of shows you. It avoids any of the underage stuff, but it shows you what a deviant he was and how Trump was kind of put off by that, possibly. But it's a fascinating origin story for Trump. I recommend you guys, because you go deep on this, you'll appreciate it. I think
dude, I would love to do that. Yeah, for sure.
Check it out.
I'll look into it right away because it was former NYPD detective and ex-head of the department's human trafficking and vice-related crimes division. His name's James Rothstein, right? And this guy told John DeCamp, who's a former Nebraska state senator who investigated, of course, the Franklin scandal, the government-connected child sex ring based in Omaha, Nebraska. And among other investigators, that Cohn had admitted to being part of a sexual blackmail operation targeting politicians with child prostitutes during a sit-down interview with the former detective. Rothstein told DeCamp following about Roy Cohn. Cohn's job was to run the little boys. Say you had an admiral, a general, a congressman who did not want to go along with the program. Cohn's job was to set them up. Then they would go along.
Oh my God!
Cohn told me that himself, says Detective James Rothstein. So Rothstein later told Paul David Collins, a former journalist turned researcher, that Roy Cohn had also identified this sexual blackmail operation as being part of the anti-communist crusade of the time. Gladio, man. I mean, the fact that Cohn, per Rothstein's recollection, stated that the child sex blackmail ring was part of the government-sponsored anti-communist crusade suggests that elements of the government, including Hoover's FBI, may have been connected at a much broader level than Hoover's own personal involvement, as the FBI closely coordinated with McCarthy and Cohn for much of the Red Scare. And I believe McCarthy was brought down by this very network, which I found interesting. I'm not defending McCarthy. I'm just saying it's very interesting.
Why? He was right about a lot of shit. That's the whole thing. If there's anyone who deserves an apology, it's McCarthy, who was like, the Red Scare's everywhere. You're like, John.
Yeah, I mean,
let me give you this one quote real quick.
He missed it. He was whiffed on.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
He what? Hold on, sorry.
There are things he whiffed on, too, for sure.
But he was right about these fucking Marxists coming in here everywhere.
He's a shady fuck, though.
Yeah, I mean,
I did want to tell you guys this one quote because I think it's perfect for what we're talking about right now. And because Austin just mentioned John DeCamp. Now, this is William Colby saying this to John DeCamp. He says, what you have to understand, John, is that sometimes there are forces and events too big, too powerful, with so much at stake for other peoples or institutions that you cannot do anything about them, no matter how evil or wrong they are, and no matter how dedicated or sincere you are, or how much evidence you have. This is simply one of the hard facts of life that you have to face. Now, this is William Colby, the former CIA director, CERCLA member, and Opus Dei sympathizer.
Exactly.
So, which, you know, if you pay attention to Opus Dei and these entities, they run roughshot through all of this shit. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and keep in mind how you know, the breaking news that just recently happened regarding Seth Rich's records being withheld by the DOJ.
So crazy,
dude. My first thought was, okay, yeah, the cover up is in place, very well established as far as Pizzagate is concerned.
Oh, I guess
the
Israel
child
was
trafficking
involved.
network, the child abuse trafficking network in DC will be protected once more. That's how they operate, man. So it's again, like, people don't comprehend the fact that Podesta, he definitely would be in any sort of unredacted files regarding Epstein, right? And so I'm under the impression, and keep in mind, we just mentioned Roy Cohn, right? Now, according to a lot of like One Nation Under Blackmail, Whitney Webb's book, I mean, it's very much a possibility that potentially Epstein's network, it was potentially passed off and was actually Roy Cohn's network passed off to Wexner and Epstein.
Both of them have mega group connections, right? So it looks like it's like one of the same.
Holy shit.
100%. And so that rings true for me personally, no doubt in my mind. And that would make sense, especially considering, the Epstein files, we're going to put all of these compromised assets who were legitimately compromised by the very network that we're now going to put in charge of the transparency and disclosure for that very network. So all the compromised Epstein assets are now in place to perform the false transparency operation to kind of drive. In my opinion, it's a huge misdirection tactic, but also it just like par for the course, right? Like, what do they say?
You know, the fix is in when a dude with a list worse than mine that sucked off a tranny and wrote an article about it is the one disseminating information to you.
Hold on.
And he's sitting over there
sucked
priming
off a
us.
tranny?
Cernovich, go look it up. The dude literally wrote an article about sucking off a tranny back then.
So he's interesting because, you know, he was being critical of Israel for a brief moment. You saw him doing that. But it's very interesting.
Well, he always seats it in like I'm just being a rational Zionist here, and I'm willing to interact with because he will always frame it in like a way of like every time I've seen him say anything that's slightly, it's more of like, oh, I can see where you're coming from, and I'll have a reasonable conversation with you. That's the framing he usually has. Although he ultimately usually takes kind of the Israel position. He's just not a screeching faggot about it.
And all these guys have to understand eventually they're just going to come for them too. I mean, eventually, once they establish the trade route that is Israel, they'll eventually clean out all these other motherfuckers too. All these brown coat fucking sellouts. They'll all get eventually they just eat their own. It's just
Cerno's supposedly the guy who's like looked the most into. He's always framed by the influencers out there of he's the guy who's looked into the most. Yeah, he'll the guy who'll deflect away from Assad accusations and act like, oh well, we don't really know. And you're like, dude, you're supposedly the guy who's looked into it the most. You know, you've got enough data points to at least come to a reasonable conclusion that like, hey, they're pretty damn involved.
It's like we said last episode, dude. It's not hate, it's criticism. You're labeling it as hate. It's criticism. Now, is there hate? Of course. Of course there is. It's the internet. Everyone gets hate. But really what you're upset about is criticism. What they're getting you to do fight their fights for them is to stop criticism of the last firewall to the true highest levels of power, which is to make it anti-Semitism. Right? I mean, that's really what it is. And it goes beyond Jews. It just gets to this, again, this predator class that they want you to believe is Jews. I'm not saying, and listen, before you guys start going nuts on me, I'm not saying there's no Jews. There's a ton of Jews involved. But it's like, as we go through it, there's more and more people involved than just one group of people.
As I was kind of implying when we were talking about secret societies, I mean, most, unless you dug into this, wouldn't really get the implications there. I was kind of heavily implying there's some sort of Catholic influence going on here with Opus Dei. You got Knights of Malta. You look at all the individuals around Trump, and you look at the individuals that hang around these blackmail networks. A lot of them are Opus Dei. I mean, the Detroit network, the fingerprints of Opus Dei was so heavy-handed, it was ridiculous. Like almost every one of those.
When you talk about Georgetown, you talked about Jonestown. That's next to Georgetown. Georgetown is a Jesuit. The University of Georgetown, Jesuit.
And that operation was arranged through Georgetown, obviously, by the leading government officials at the time who were installed by the intelligence community. But with Cernovich, it's ridiculous because he claims that Alan Dershowitz was his inspiration to go to law school, and he also created a film, right? As executive producer, and also was legitimately filming it himself. And Cernovich, this documentary was starring none other than Alan Dershowitz as well. So you can look all of that up, and it's very clear and obvious that he's compromised by the very network, in place. But as far as on the front of the secret society aspect, connecting into Gladio, I think it's very important to have that conversation, at least briefly. But what I think is the most interesting right now is that we had mentioned Roy Cohn, and I just wanted to kind of reinforce that narrative, because when I covered The Ultimate Evil, which is really just an episode dedicated to the David Berkowitz murders being entirely, a part of this wider network that were following this ideology of a organized cult, so a cult organization known as the Process Church of the Final Judgment, right? But it's interesting because, according to Berkowitz, the Process Church was providing children for sex at parties held by wealthy people in Westchester, Manhattan, Connecticut, and Long Island. Berkowitz informed Maury Terry, the author of The Ultimate Evil, that one of these parties were held at Roy Cohn's house in Connecticut.
Unbelievable.
Additionally, two further witnesses maintained that occasionally present at these parties were a Yonkers judge, at least two Westchester County politicians, a high-ranking New York State politician, a celebrated but later murdered physician, a Nobel Prize-winning doctor, and two aides to then-mayor of New York City, Abraham Beame. So, and that, I think, is something that's worth mentioning. You know what I mean? Like, especially
we've been saying this forever.
Yeah,
with the left in particular, conformity. Conformity is the initiation into just the structure. Then pedophilia is the initiation to the highest levels of power. That, like, is either it's like a gang jumping. It's like you got to murder someone to get in a gang. You got to rape a kid to get to this highest level.
There's no better contractual agreement or contractual offer you can put on the table that will seal your word more than a dark contract with the blood of a child. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, it's very interesting because that came up in the context of Concora as well, as far as the murder of, Brian McDermott, and the reason that he committed this blood ritual sacrifice. And kind of like draws into as far as like the purpose behind the sacrifice. It really is very interesting, and it ties into the Royal Black Institute. It's basically this Freemasonic Brotherhood that was entirely responsible for the Orange Order, which was a Protestant fraternal order and secret society based in Northern Ireland with deep ties to the Black Preceptory, or Royal Black Institution, and the Freemasonic Brotherhood. And so the occult history of Ireland is very interesting, and all these alpha lodges of British Freemasonry essentially executed using these revolutionaries. Basically they had an entire operation called Operation Clockwork Orange, and it was really to destabilize.
And when did that come out?
This was all like Operation Clockwork Orange was forget his name is Colin Wallace, I believe. He's the man who knew too much, and he's an MI6 agent, I believe.
But when did that come out?
Kinkora?
No, when did Operation Clockwork Orange? When was that operation running?
It was in the 80s. Yeah. So it was like late 70s, early 80s. I'll pull up the actual date. Hold on, let me pull it up.
You know what's so funny about that is like, what came out first, the movie or the movie or the operation?
Yeah, honestly, when did it?
Well, the film came out in the early 70s, like probably 70, 71, something like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so Operation Clockwork Orange was a secret British security services project alleged to have involved a right-wing smear campaign against British politicians from 1974 to 75.
And the book was in
around
62.
the same time.
The book came out in 62, and then the film was 71.
Oh.
Okay, all right. So yeah, it's fresh off the heels of the movie, not too long after.
But that's what they do. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They take a pop culture thing and they use it to shield people looking deeper. And that was one of the things that Kanye said on Rogan, right? Like,
yes, yeah.
Like they made the movie Black Panther so nobody would ever hear about the Black Panthers.
My God.
They misspelled Abraxas, and it's in the Dutroux thing. And I think I've told you before, Abraxas is actually a Marvel character too. So I find that interesting that it's almost like covered up a little bit. There is a satanic component to the Dutroux affair earlier, where there was this Abraxas. It also had another term called Celestial Church of Christ, which I thought was interesting. But I think that might be like a process church thing where they kind of worship God and the devil. So that's what that is. They were also looks like they were exploiting Nigerian immigrants there. And this the connection there is Nihul, the person running, allegedly running the Dutroux network. His wife was I believe the finance person of that cult, and so it seems that she was getting in touch with Nigerian immigrants, and they happen to have a young Nigerian immigrant prostitution problem in the area. So a little bit weird that there's this cult helping these, supposedly quote unquote helping these people out. Meanwhile, she's the wife of like the most notorious sex trafficker in the country. So
yeah, especially with as far as like when the police investigated this Belgian gang accused of child sexual abuse and murder, that they raided the headquarters of this very same satanic sect, and they were looking for clues in regard to this this paramilitary Belgian gang, which had been accused of child sexual abuse. And so it said that essentially after they raided the headquarters of the Institute, Abraxas is how they pronounce it, I think. And it's really just another version of Abraxas. It's very interesting. You pull it up. It is just another name for Abraxas, but it said 150
chicken
police.
Heads, thank God.
Yeah. Exactly. It said 150 police and special investigators raided the headquarters of the Institute of Abraxas in Forches-le-Marche, near the central Belgian city of Charleroi on Saturday night. That was in 96. And the television showed police taking away bags of papers, video cassettes, and a refrigerator. It said they also took away black magic ritual implements and human skulls.
Oh my God.
RTBF said the raid had been prompted by the discovery of an undated letter addressed to someone named Bernard, asking him to remind someone else that a special ceremony was approaching and to remember a special gift. The letter was then signed by Anubis, an ancient Egyptian god, and the assumed name of the high priestess of the Abraxas sect. A Frenchman, Bernard Weinstein, a known accomplice of a gang led by convicted rapist Marc Dutroux. He admitted to, which Dutroux, of course, admitted to burying him alive and murdering him on one of his properties. But Weinstein's body was found alongside those of 8-year-olds Julie Lugin and Melissa Russo in mid-August and buried on a property belonging to Dutroux in the town of Sars-le-Boussier, southwest of Charleroi. But yeah, it gets even crazier than that because the 2 girls abducted in June of 95 had starved to death earlier that year. Dominique Kindermans, the high priestess of the sect of Abraxas, said that to her knowledge, neither Dutroux nor Weinstein had ever been members of or connected with Abraxas. A spokesman for gendarmes, the police force, searching an abandoned mine complex in nearby Jumet, a suburb of Charleroi, refused to comment on any link between the Abraxas raid and their own hunt for a secret hiding place they are convinced Dutroux had in the mine for abducted children. Found during the raid were letters to Dutroux and his murdered accomplice Weinstein, along with additional paperwork linking Dutroux to the satanic cult, even going into detail stating that victims were stripped naked, chased into the woods by dogs, and then subjected to torture and orgies. Another victim of similar abuse, Darren Jeffries, described being taken with a group of children to Rainbow Wood, located in Bath, in the UK. And once there, saints of these cult groups would take part in the ritualized tribute they called the chase, where they would be stripped naked and they would be chased by men and dogs. And apparently once they were captured, they would be tortured, sodomized, and some of the children even died there. The chase is what it was called. Is allegedly a known tribute to the biblical Moloch or child sacrifice.
Oh my God, there it is.
As an owl.
Fucking
the idea is that an owl doesn't just catch a mouse and eat it. The owl will capture a mouse and then let it go. It gives its prey a sense of freedom before tormenting and killing it. It has since been revealed that Weinstein and Dutroux were not only procuring children for sex, but for satanic ritual abuse. Weinstein and Dutroux stood under High Priestess Anubis of the Satanic Order of Abersacs in southern Belgium, which was later verified through a police investigation that went public. And Dutroux says he abducted girls with police help. He explains that Dutroux's lawyer apparently said during the trial proceedings, "I speak not only as a lawyer, but also as a citizen and father. He was not the only devil." Out of the 6,000 hair samples that were found in the basement cellar where some of the victims were held, 25 unknown DNA profiles were discovered. There were people in that cellar that are not now accused. The prosecution never attempted to match those DNA profiles to people implicated in the case. The girls that survived were mentioning people they had seen on television, prominent politicians, established members of the Catholic clergy, and John Wedger. He's an investigator, former Scotland Yard detective. He claims to have good information on a member of the clergy who was involved in the killings of two of the girls at a party. And it's one of the most fucked up and disturbing things of all time, claiming that he murdered them by impaling them internally on a concrete dildo.
I'll fucking kill everybody, dude.
Wow.
I'll
this
fucking
is the
kill
sadistic
everybody,
level
dude.
of depravity involved in such an enterprise.
Oh my
right?
God, dude.
Yeah, man. I mean, it gets so much even worse than that.
Yeah, I mean that the hunt you were talking about, the same shit they were doing over in North Fox Island, which we can tie that right into serial killers, which ties into Operation Phoenix. Like it almost looks like we were creating these serial killers, then brought them home. So yeah, I mean, what Dean Coral's like kind of the through line there from how you get
Network,
from the
Odyssey Foundation.
Yep.
100%, man. And there's more than that. The Elm Guest House affair of 1982 implicating these elites in the UK government, but not only the UK government.
It's so crazy to me. So we have the Oscars, you know, it brings up this woman who was married to Trudeau or whatever his name is, and she goes over there and starts another sex trafficking ring somewhere else, right? And we have the Oscars, and who won Oscar of the Year for male acting? What's his name?
Adrian Brody.
Adrian Brody.
Oh, yeah.
His wife used to be with Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein, yeah, Harvey Weinstein.
Wow, that's crazy.
And it's just like she's allowed to just go on with her life. Bitch, you don't tell me you didn't know what he was doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, his kids now are Adrian Brody refers to him as his kids now, like Harvey Weinstein's two kids.
It's so gross, dude. It's so gross. And here you are.
He released a statement today. Actually, this is the first time we heard from Harvey Weinstein in a while. What
did he say?
He said that he appreciated that his kids were getting the love they deserve. Is what he said.
Like, who gives a fuck, you scumbag? You're all they're all scumbags. That's why you can't take any of that shit serious. You're sitting there talking about you get a second break in life. Oh yeah, you're married to a woman who was with a guy who was a rapist. I mean, like, what are you doing? Running like sex trafficking networks, funneling money to Israel. Like, get the fuck out of here with this bullshit,
man. You know what is crazy to me is that in regard to this strategy of tension and Gladio, as far as these stay-behind networks being involved with this very concept of abuse, you know, they were utilizing corporate front organizations, right? It's just like Operation Chaos, where they're forming all these various proprietary firms at the time to achieve plausible deniability is one reason. but it's also the corporate fronts. They can then behave in this sort of like
it's a private public CIA, baby.
Exactly. Consider that. It is the perfect example of the public-private partnerships that seem to
It's almost like when we have these entities, these players out there that are actually in reality government contractors, and they're sold to us as if, oh, they're these amazing businessmen, you know, these great men of stature, the Howard Rourkes of the world. And no, they're literally government employees. They're a public private. They're leaning heavy on the private and hoping you don't pay attention to the public. Meanwhile, these are leeches. I'm speaking of individuals like Elon Musk, you know, or the Peter Thiels. These are government contractors. Realize what they are. These are parasites. I mean, these are parasites that have learned how to play in both fields, play in both entities. So they may learn some good things from the private market side of things, but at the end of the day, these are people that are sucking off the teat of government, and they sure would love to suck a whole lot more. So I think people need to keep an eye on it. And I think it's a kind of, we're in this time where, cuts. And like, sure, I think it's great. I'm a libertarian. I'm all for, you know, budget cuts and the like, but keep in mind what's going to happen when the CIA, you know, when they say, oh, we got to cut are they really cutting, or is people, you know, finding ways to leverage, you know, that into private entities, and now they get government contracts. Yeah. And now the problem just keeps perpetuating.
Watch what the devil you know, you know. And man, watch what's going to happen. I mean, like, okay, I'm happy. Get rid of the IRS, get rid of the Fed. What's going to replace it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's where you see the pivot taking place, and that's what, as far as the pivot to technocracy, and that's what really I'm most fearful of is this. Of course, you have these, you know, these Peter Thiel acolytes standing tall behind Trump that very much concern me. I've been kind of like drawing these direct lines throughout how this sort of pivot to kind of reshaping various aspects of, like, for example, even public health has been a priority, I think. And this goes into the dystopian biometric measures that are kind of being ushered through with various false flags like the bird flu and then things of that nature. And in reality, it's really this ultimate agenda that's in play here with biotech investors who are attempting to, like BlackRock's vision, right, to achieve this vision of, you know, kind of basically, here's a good example, is that I'm very concerned that someone such as an RFK Jr., who is really kind of like, I bought his book on Fauci. I mean, I read it. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate a lot of what he has exposed throughout that process during COVID. But I'm very concerned about the fact that I think he's potentially compromised by the Epstein network and sexual blackmail. I think that's a legitimate possibility.
What tipped you off there?
Who is?
Brothers. It's got to be the deranged sex diary that he had.
Dude.
Yeah. And then directly after his
guys, he's handling health, though. That has nothing to do with Jews, we're good.
Or anti-Semitism and free speech, right? HHS should have no role there, but apparently now they do. And this is a precedent-setting operation in many ways. But if you have...
Hey, Austin, healthy communities are free of anti-Semitism, okay?
Oh, my God. I'm telling you right now that when you go and discover that, first of all, you have RFK Jr. rebuilding public trust, kind of rebranding the vaccine agenda in many ways. That's what I think is potentially why he's being leveraged and exploited in that manner. He might even have the best of intentions when it comes down to that specific agenda, and not be entirely read in on the compromise and the undermining of his potential, you know, hopes as far as any sort of like. But I don't know. They'll placate him in certain ways, I guarantee
Palestinians are the most pampered people in history. You lose all credibility. Now, I'm going to say something. Mm-hmm. Everybody that I know that knows this dude on a personal level says he's the nicest dude you've ever met. Sure. It's crazy to me. Mm-hmm. But what happened on those flights? I mean, we all know... guy to sex addiction, like most men of power have when there's availability of ass everywhere. You just do it. And where did he end up? Where did his like punching card end up, dude? You know?
Yeah, whose face did he eat? We don't know.
Man, we know he's on the Epstein list, and beyond that, as far as I'm very concerned about this Peter Thiel linked HHS deputy director, which I believe to be truly the one in charge on the ground, legislative action, as far as like essentially this individual, Jim O'Neill, is the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services and under RFK Jr. And as Deputy Secretary, O'Neill would essentially function as the Chief Operating Officer of the department, overseeing the day-to-day operations of all sub-agencies, as well as leading public health emergency preparedness. And so, of course, the government's policy responses to bioterror events, pandemics, etc. In addition, O'Neill would oversee the development and clearance of HHS regulations and ostensibly be the main implementer of the Make America Healthy Again policy agenda. So, here's the problem. O'Neill's business connections, both past and present, as well as his previous statements on public health policy, strongly suggest that he is not only unlikely to implement the policies that Make America Healthy Again centric voters are expecting, but that he may in fact pursue an agenda that stands in direct conflict with the main tenets of the Maha movement, or whatever it is. Specifically, he advocates reforming the FDA to deregulate and accelerate the pathway from drug development to legalization. This would notably aid the biotech industry, which has long struggled to get its products approved outside of an emergency-based deregulatory paradigm. So I believe...
But, hey, Austin, we can get ahead of this measles outbreak, though.
Yeah. MMR vaccines now, even though we know there's a direct cause to autism, we're going to now shill for MMR vaccines. I heard RFK Jr. make this connection. He's aware that MMR vaccines are one of the leading causes in young boys in potentially causing autism. And we've had CDC whistleblowers who have come out and said as much, and that they manipulated the studies that were now available and revealed to the public. And so this biotech investor and Peter Thiel associate, Jim O'Neill, is poised to usher in this deregulatory paradigm that would allow the proliferation of these dubious products on the U.S. market under the guise of innovation and efficiency.
Yeah, where do you think Elon learned how his methodology for his influence network? You know, Elon's going around and dumping loads in women of influential variety. He proposed it to Nicole Shanahan as well. She said no. Peter Thiel's doing the same thing. He's just dumping loads in guys all over the place, and now they're part of his influence network. That's what's going on here.
Oh my God, that's such a
it's so crazy.
Weird way of just like welcome you into the fucking thing. That's just
for real.
It's crazy.
He only hires gay twinks, obviously.
Oh, you know who else was on that list?
You know what's so funny? Go on. And
RFK's mother.
What about her?
She's on the list of the flight logs for
really?
which is weird.
That's
Why is your mom on there?
I don't know. Kenny's got dark, dude. Kenny's got dark. It was so funny. When I was younger, there was a audition I went into. And the casting director, who was the producer, was flaming gay. and I'm just like, oh, dude, this guy's never gonna hire me. I'm not, he could tell I'm not one of his tribe.
You didn't try to gate up?
Hand to God, I watched the show. You could not have got a bigger queen to host the show if you tried.
That's hilarious.
It's crazy. So Peter Thiel going around putting his dick in dudes. That's how you got to get into the club. It's like unbelievable.
And he's got a strange, man. His connections to Ambrosia.
He's always sweating. Always.
Oh, yeah. But I'm telling you, he wants to extend his lifespan, and he's like looking into all these things like Ambrosia.
He's just gay Frankenstein. That's all he is.
If you're a demon, why would you want to die? You know, like you know what's going on the other side isn't good. Mm-hmm. That's why they're like, let me live forever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, he's pursuing adrenochrome, but in some sort of legal fashion, and supporting companies like Ambrosia, which are very obviously, violating certain legalities in that regard. But one last real connection that I wanted to make sure that we drew directly to Gladio was the Whack and Hunt Corporation, because I believe, as I had mentioned. These sort of corporate fronts that were being utilized through Gladio. Whack and Hunt was one, but so was Permindex, and both of them are very important within this context, especially how they were kind of leveraged and exploited by. Yeah, that's one exactly. But U.S. intelligence were leveraging and exploiting these corporate fronts, not only CIA and U.S. intelligence, but also MI6 and foreign intelligence agencies as well. And so Wackenhut's so crazy. Man, it's come up. First of all, they were the company who were providing the training on the ground at the black sites in Belgium for the connection there for those paramilitary groups with Dutroux. And so beyond that, during New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison's investigation of the JFK assassination, Wackenhut performed detective work for Clay Shaw's defense team and was illegally eavesdropping on Jim Garrison's office during that time. And that alone is like one of the craziest connections that I've ever come across, honestly, in that regard. But then you have this connection where you can draw in these Gladio front companies to modern day Gladio. Honestly, that's what it truly seems to be. So you can draw this all the way up to the Cabazon Indian Reservation, which Jose just mentioned, which after 10 years of exploiting the Cabazon Indian Reservation, a few honest sheriff's deputies and grand jurors came together to form an organization called Decency in Government, Inc., and proceeded to file a lawsuit against the Attorney General of California, the California governor, and the director of the FBI for dereliction of duty. Now, keep in mind, this is around the same area as the Jim Jones Fort Bragg, right? So it all seems that it's very much like, ground zero for a lot of this, especially considering San Francisco is not far, and knowing the connections with mind control operations and behavioral modification there. But anyway, so
apex predators, dude. They're all Gavin Newsom, apex predator.
100%.
They're all apex predators, dude.
And we can only hope that Karen Bass, the mayor who just got caught by she got Project Veritas or something.
I mean, dude, they're finally calling for her to step. I cannot believe it's taken this long.
That's insane.
And I thought it was dead in the water, dude. Thank God for whatever you want to say about James O'Keefe. Maybe that audio is what actually brings a little bit of justice.
Yeah,
I hope so, man. I really do. But so it's interesting because as these lawsuits were being filed against all these California officials as well as the director of FBI for dereliction of duty, apparently the reason was by knowingly allowing and facilitating drug trafficking and smuggling operations in the area, specifically Central California.
Yeah.
So you have several Indians claimed that they had been forced to participate in some of these criminal actions by local sheriff's deputies, essentially exploiting them as slave labor to produce certain drugs. Operatives were flying small planes into the area. Think Barry Seal, right? Think Tosh Plumley. These covert operators that are being.
Is this the octopus?
This is the octopus. Yeah. Yeah. So you have a connection to Cabazon Indian Reservation, Danny Casallero's octopus, and Iran-Contra all in one with Gladio. That is what the fuck we have here. So you have
Gladio is the network.
It has to be. It has to be. I mean, it seems like this is the network that was put into place post-World War II, and it's effectively the private intelligence network that we were talking about. It's
the Martin Boardman Brotherhood. Yeah. That's really what it is.
It's like if you were feeling around in the vascular system along the veins, like when you find Gladio is when you find the artery, when you feel that like ba-boom, 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 that is what Gladio is. Like,
so quick, as I don't want to keep you guys all day, but what is the definition to you of the Gladio system? Say a definition in a sentence or two.
Well, let me. I know I pulled up, really, I think the best book to go read is Operation Gladio by Paul Williams, The Unholy Alliance, because I truly believe that the Vatican, the CIA, and the mob are directly implicated in this network being formed in the first place. But the way it was described in the first chapter of that book, he begins with a quote by Steve Kangas, I believe, and it's from 1994, a timeline of CIA atrocities. And so he says the Association of Responsible Dissent estimates that by 1987, 6 million people had died as a result of CIA covert operations.
Damn.
Former State Department official William Bloom correctly calls this an American Holocaust. The CIA justifies these actions as part of its war against communism. But most coups do not involve a communist threat. Unlucky nations are targeted for a wide variety of reasons, not only threats to American business interests abroad, but also liberal or even moderate social reforms, political instability, the unwillingness of a leader to carry out Washington's dictates and declarations of neutrality in the Cold War. Indeed, nothing has infuriated CIA directors quite like a nation's desire to stay out of the Cold War. And I just kind of thought that that was an interesting way to put it, at the very least. But my favorite way, I think, to kind of describe it is basically the way I began my episode on Jonestown a while. Man, it was one of my first episodes, honestly, and I came across the book, The CIA and the Cult of Intelligence. And as I kind of charted before, like if you look at the chronology of how Gladio was implemented, then you discover that essentially, before the CIA is even established, you have in June of 1942, the Vatican Bank is created and then Lucky Luciano is recruited by ONI. And then you have in April of 43, within a year's time, Operation Husky and the Fort Hunt Conference, which is the formation of Gladio itself. And that happened by February of 1945. So this was in action. And then you have James Jesus Angleton and Borghese establish the Italian stay-behind units, and then Lucky Luciano hosts the Havana Conference, and then the CIA is established. And that's when heroin comes to Harlem. PCI makes monumental election gains. Vatican receives $65 million in black funds. CIA develops the drug trade with KMT. Operation Mockingbird. Catholic Gladio is established. Lucio Gelli serves as CIA's liaison to Italian military intelligence.
Yep, it's all
nuts,
that, dude. It's all of
nuts.
that. It's the Jesuits. It's the Zionists. It's the communists. It's the Marxists. It's the Freemasons. It's all that is the umbrella in which all of them, the Satanists, all of them work to get under this umbrella of Gladio, which to me bores out from the Nazi regime. And that's why I always say Nazis didn't lose World War II. Germany did. And it was all part of a way to destroy Germany from the inside, which they're still trying to do. Because I'm sorry, guys, watch for this happening. We're already seeing it. What did Howie say the other day on Cash Daddies? That European military companies, their stock is shooting up, right?
Yeah, because of the requirements for joining NATO, right?
But it is foretold in the Bible that the EU will step in to Gaza. I'm telling you, man. I mark my words. El Dorado's been calling this shit forever. And then when I heard that, I go, this fucking fits right into it. And this is why they're destroying. This is why World War I happened. This is why World War II happened. Is they're destroying Germany from the inside because Germany is supposed to lead the pagans against
wait. But here's my question to you about that now as a believer. See, many believers support what's going on over there because they believe it's necessary. These things have to happen for, the Christ's return. So you as a Christian should be in favor of that.
I'm a follower of Christ, but I believe there's and I don't want to lose everybody. I'm here. You believe you. I will support you in what you believe. Okay? But I think there is an invisible hand in a lot of this. That's just
absolutely. And that's why I believe that knowing the ideological framework that you're dealing with, wouldn't you attempt to, as far as like, the manufactured false prophecy is what I believe has been taking place in regard to, misdirecting fundamental believers into who have very much embraced, the Christian Zionism in many ways, right? And I think that's a product of many different factors involved, but I think that there was a deliberate operation in place to subvert the ideology of the Christian, right? Of as far as just the Western Christian, right? The Christians in America. It was to utilize this group of ideologues to their advantage. And so, why wouldn't you manufacture what seems as if a naturally occurring, prophecy, divine prophecy in place. But in reality, you've manufactured this false prophecy in order to kind of bring into the fold this very group of individuals, who subscribe to this ideology and are very vulnerable to this sort of deception, and mind manipulation, that they won't quite see that coming. And so they'll view it as, well, this is what I've been prepared for. I've been primed for this to occur. And so therefore, what I believe is true. And it's reinforcing their ideology on the way to complete and total genocide. And so it's like, you will justify the genocide if you've been convinced of the ideological circumstances involved and the ethical justifications in place, which clearly these mind manipulators are consistently trying to misdirect people
at every moment, dude. And it's like Kurt Metzger said a long time ago, man. There are things that he thinks is in the Bible. Johnny, as a believer, would you say it is possible that parts of the Bible could have been manipulated from outside?
Yeah, certainly. Okay. But I don't think that.
So I mean, okay.
There was a pope that legitimately, it's legitimately been noted, as far as I forget which pope it was, that effectively attempted to manipulate the scripture itself.
I just find it so weird, dude, that God created people and then God creates this that you should kill these people. I'm sorry. I'm just. That's just. I'm not,
funny though. The Old Testament.
I'm not telling anybody how to live their life. I am a follower of Christ, the teachings of Christ. I just find it weird that some people are God's chosen people and other people are just meant to be slaughtered. It's weird to me.
Yeah, Jesus never said those things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, anyways, I want to end on this. This has been an excellent episode. It got very dark.
Yeah.
But this is what you come for, right? I mean, you just got to understand what you're up against. I mean, shock. I've learned so much today. And really is, what is the power structure of the world? And it's like, it's Operation Gladio. That's it. What is it? It's Operation Gladio. It is most likely a Nazi-created apparatus that spider webs into almost everything. It is shown as it is presented as almost like an anti-communist movement, but in reality, it is doing everything you hate: arms dealing, murder, child sex trafficking, killing of children, blackmail, all that. That is what it really, like, how many times we see in like Hollywood or entertainment or even politics, someone is presented to us as a fucking just a beam of light. In reality, they are dark, nasty people. Like Jerry Seinfeld, right? I mean, when Jerry Seinfeld was on television, you're like, oh, dude, he's just a clean comic who's just a regular guy. It turns out he's a scumbag who fucks married women, and he fucking is like fine with just absolutely.
I love that you're just saying that now. One time that was a thing you like, I heard something.
Well, his take on Palestinians, he can go fuck himself.
That's great. Good.
Yeah.
Larry
Real
David
quick,
all day. Team Larry David all day. Larry David probably has some Zionist views, but at the end.
Oh, dude, no. He's big time.
Of course, but I would take him 1,000 times. Like the fact that Jerry Seinfeld is the actor who's made the most money in his life is like just a sign that we live in a false reality.
Yeah. Is that real?
Yeah, 100%.
That's real? He's made the most money?
He's made more money than everybody else. I don't know how he's made more money than Larry David, who's had 2 successful shows.
Well, Seinfeld, just the syndication there. He was one of the last guys to really get that syndication. It was like him and Ray Romano.
How does Larry David not get that exact same money?
Remember, he left. Larry David, he wasn't there for the whole run.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Anyways, guys, great show. Did we miss anything, or can we wrap it up? I don't want to keep you all day.
I did want to answer your question about how to lay it out. I think I have a quick way to kind of understand Gladio. I think it's an untouchable, top level, elite military is probably the best way to understand it. Like, so this is the secret military that we don't see, the one that's concealed from you. that's going on behind the scenes. That is what we're dealing with there. And obviously there's a hierarchy, as there is in any military, and the higher up you get there, the more implicated they are in the network. But at the end of the day, this is essentially the kind of phantom little fingers you see out there of our elites military that play around in shadows.
Man, my final thoughts are basically that I had mentioned the Cabazon connection to Wackenhut, and how Wackenhut was working for, during the Clay Shaw's defense team during the JFK assassination. Man, it's so much worse than that, because not only were they exploiting Cabazon in the 90s and late 80s for Iran-Contra, but I mean, you consider like how the immigration crisis is being framed, in America. It's interesting to me because if you watch Cartel Land and you kind of understand the dynamic between the intelligence community kind of utilizing the cartels to manufacture amphetamines, or even just to facilitate and distribute Chinese fentanyl through the border. I mean, it's definitely been an operation that has been triggered by U.S. intelligence and benefited from as well, because that's how they kind of finance a lot of these black budget operations. If we didn't learn anything from Iran-Contra, then what did we learn? And so the last things that I really wanted to mention was just to finally make this final connection between, I had mentioned last episode earlier in the month, or in February, that we had the conversation about Omar Mateen and the Post Nightclub Network, and briefly how this is tied into Operation Gladio, and really brings into the modern day as far as like the representation and example of how they kind of conduct these paramilitary, well, really destabilization operations domestically within the U.S. And that comes in the form of Wackenhut still to this day, because apparently beyond exploiting these Indians at Cabazon Indian Reservation for slave labor to produce these drugs, they were also, obviously operatives like Barry Seal and Tosh Plumley were flying in the area as far as smuggling in drugs from Latin America. And at the time, part of it was cocaine being grown in Peru. It was then processed in Colombia and was subsequently distributed out of Costa Rica. And they had been flying in Mexican nationals, so illegal Mexican nationals, to produce and cook meth on the reservation in California. And so you have Sherry Seymour, who wrote an amazing book. It's escaping me the name of her book right now. The Final Circle, The Last Circle, something like that. And she traced all this back to an organization in Fresno called The Company, which was comprised of about 300 former military personnel and law enforcement officers. They had been importing billions of dollars of narcotics from Latin America. They owned ships and airplanes. They were performing mercenary operations and gun running. All of this was published in the San Francisco Chronicle in 82 to 83. There had also been a joint venture between the Cabazon Indian Reservation and Wackenhut Security Corporation to develop esoteric weapons like the railgun, and even included biological warfare. The Wackenhut Corporation, apparently it's like they're really exploiting the legalities behind what an Indian reservation is, without the kind of the federal government's purview involved, sort of, in a way. And so the Wackenhut Corporation was originally founded in 1954 in Coral Gables, Florida, by George Wackenhut and 3 partners, all former FBI agents. In 1983, Wackenhut's 3-year, $81 million contract at the Savannah River Nuclear Weapons Facility in South Carolina was the largest paramilitary security contract ever awarded by the U.S. government. Wackenhut outbid 18 other bidders to win the contract and brought in 460 uniformed security personnel and 50 administrative support personnel as part of just this single contract. Now, here's where it connects to Omar Mateen. In 2002, the company was acquired for $570 million by Danish corporation group 4Falk. Itself then merged to form the company G4S in 2004. By 2010, G4S Wackenhut changed its name to G4S Secure Solutions. Its America's region headquarters was in Jupiter, Florida. And on June 12th, 2016, Omar Mateen, who worked at G4S from 2007 until his death, committed one of the largest mass shootings in United States history. And apparently, Mateen's employment as an armed guard helped facilitate his access to the firearms. And these firearms refresher courses that he was taking each 4 years at G4S, the company's inability to detect prior warning signals, of course, brought it under widespread scrutiny during that time. And it was the videotape of Mateen that surfaced in 2010 was of him working security for G4S at a site related to the BP oil spill. And the claim had been made that Mateen had a family connection to Al-Qaeda and had said that he was a member of Hezbollah. And that claim happened to originate from his co-workers at G4S Wackenhut. So this is apparently when the county sheriff's office called in the FBI. And according to reports from the Miami Herald and the New York Times, when G4S became aware that the FBI was investigating Mateen, they did not dismiss Mateen, but transferred him to the South Guardhouse of the PGA Village, a gated community in Palm Beach County. And this is when FBI Director James Comey would later repeat the claims allegedly made by Mateen's basically military contractors, workers at G4S. And Mateen had made statements to his co-workers, allegedly, that were inflammatory and contradictory, claiming a family connection to Al-Qaeda, and said he was a member of Hezbollah, a bitter enemy of the Islamic State. And James Comey said he hoped law enforcement would raid his apartment and assault his wife and child so he could martyr himself. Those were the words of James Comey. So the whole point being, this directly implicates the very same corporate front organization that was had been designed to run plausible deniability for the CIA's Gladio operation, and again ties perfectly into not only Dutroux but JFK, but the
and you say
as
Fort Braggs, bro. I mean, Broward County is right there when it comes to psyops, dude. Like 9/11, Adam Walsh, the shooting. I think the school shooting where we got that fucking retard kid, whatever his name is, that is now the
David
head.
Hogg? Yeah.
David Hogg. I don't know if that's right in Broward County or it's near Broward County. Which is all Debbie Wasserman Schultz, everybody.
Exactly.
Who is like, nobody talks about that bitch anymore. And the fact that her own trial, the prosecutor was her brother. Nobody ever talks about that. Unbelievable. It's great. Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, it's all connected, dude. And Project Gladio is the connection. It is it. It is this private military that is disguised as anti-communism, but in reality, it is just everything you hate in the world. But the final thing, because I can't keep going, because I'm gonna be stuck in traffic all night. So when everyone's like, "Let's get out of NATO," what's your thoughts on that? When Trump's like, "We're gonna get out of NATO," everyone's like, "Let's get out of NATO." What's your thoughts on that?
Phenomenal. Go for it. I mean,
but do you think it's real? Do you think it's theater? Do you
I don't know. We're pretty damn obsolete at this point. So, I mean, I can kind of understand why we would step out of NATO. I mean, it is kind of pretty fucking pointless. It serves really, I mean, I think it just might be one of those things that just is a thing of the past and it doesn't really serve anyone but Europe. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess I could be jaded and think, maybe something else. But, I mean, I don't know. It's been around for so long, and NATO's had no real reason to exist for so fucking long. So I don't know. It just
provides.
I think it might just be
guarantees.
too obvious to continue to exist. I don't know.
I don't think the effect or the consequential outcome of pulling out of NATO, would really have any sort of long-term effect beyond. Clearly we would be unplugging ourselves from the wartime guarantees from the deal itself as far as just like the NATO allied countries. But still, I think that what should take priority is, pulling out of the United Nations and absolving the United Nations. Because I think the UN is really what helped kind of fully implement the Gladio network as that private intelligence operation that really spans the globe internationally and does not have to account for international or national borders in any way. And they found ways to kind of, breach those national borders in the first place anyway by the plausible deniability of like using, religious groups and NGO organizations, right? So that alone, I think that the United Nations is really what should take priority. But I'm always up for any sort of people like to claim it's isolation as far as the policy is concerned.
I'm all for it, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely,
I'm all for it.
Agreed.
All right, guys. You guys crushed. Great show. I mean, mind-blowing. Answers questions. One more time. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I have the No Way Jose podcast. Austin has the Underclass podcast. Me and him both do. Obviously, I have my solo work, so my solo stuff. You're only gonna be able to get on No Way Jose. But Already Dead, which is our weekly our live stream call-in show at Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. That it is hosted on both of our channels. Also, along with our daily morning live stream called The Morning Dump, that is hosted on both our channels as well. That's the No Way Jose podcast that is on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers as well. But as you can see here, it also goes out on Austin's as well. So you can get that on both. We also have our own solo content you can check out. But you can follow me on Twitter at TowerGangJose. Probably the best thing if you want to start on my content, go to the playlists. Probably on YouTube would be the best place to start. Go check out my OKC stuff. That's probably the most I've done. The thing I've done the most coverage on. That's also, we didn't talk about that at all today, but I think that's probably a Gladio op as well. I don't know. It's almost the 30th anniversary. If anyone wants to bring me on to talk about how it's a Gladio op.
Gladio ops. Everyone's got a Gladio op.
Exactly. But yeah, follow me Twitter, TowerGangJose. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you again.
Always a pleasure.
And yeah, with that,
Austin, where can they find you?
All right, guys, man, just follow me at the Underclass podcast, basically pretty much on all platforms at this point. But I would say also the best place to support me, if you have the means to do so, would be the Patreon. I'm trying to drive everyone to the Patreon at this point. And through becoming a subscriber to the Patreon, obviously you'll get access to the paywalled content, which has been a blessing. Sam, I appreciate that. By the way, I just wanted to say how grateful I am because just having the show, whatever this is that we've been doing recently, I've definitely seen a difference as far as more supporters flowing in.
Whatever this is,
exactly. But just helping me create a few more incentives for supporting members. I can't thank you enough, brother. But beyond that, yeah, the Underclass podcast at Patreon, and yeah, if you want to check out my work, any sort of solo work beyond what I've been doing with Jose, as far as Already Dead and The Morning Dump, the Underclass podcast is kind of an interesting approach to some of this research, and I think that it's been great for me, like being able to do these various, as far as the shows, kind of like exploring my ability to, like, as far as it's an entirely different technique, that's for damn sure, as far as my approach to the research itself. But definitely start with, I think my most I guess probably the most well-liked episode that I've done so far is The Ultimate Evil, The Process Church of the Final Judgment. And then really, as far as my most recent episode has been doing very well as far as that was concerned. And that was the one about the Fort Bragg murders and Jeffrey McDonald. So definitely, if you're interested to discover a new podcast, then find someone who's attempting to objectively approach these cases as well as I can. Check it out, man. At the Underclass podcast.
Don't mean to cut you off, but I totally forgot, and Top Lobster is going to be mad at me if I forget. Well, I guess it's kind of two there, but mainly I want to say toplobster.com. There's an Already Dead page. You can get merch. There's Yiki shirts, Trying to Do shirts. There's Operation Gladio shirts. There's Already Dead shirts as well. So if that's something you want, go check that toplobster.com. With that, also, Top Lobster is my homie. I'm literally about to go on Tower Gang within the hour. So go check out Tower Gang if you like offensive comedy.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday at 9:11 p.m. Eastern. Obvious joke is obvious. Towers, haha. But we are, we're the most offensive comedy podcast out there. We go hard. We have fun. That's me, Top Lobster, Clint Russell, Cole, and Toad.
All right.
Go check that out. Yeah.
Well, say hi to those faggots for me, and let's break down this episode. All right, guys, crazy episode. Very informative. Gets super dark, but it answers a lot of questions. Would you guys agree?
We get down to the nitty gritty.
All right, guys. If you go to samtripoli.com, listen, I'm not going to break it down because we broke it down.
Yeah, there's nothing to break down.
We already broke it down at the end. Go down. Okay. I am going to be in Detroit, Michigan on the 28th through the 29th. Then I'm going to be in Tacoma on the 10th through the 12th. Go to samtripoli.com.
Comedy Chaos.
Comedy Chaos on the Comedy Chaos Tuesday tonight. Grab your tickets. Hopefully it's sold out by now. All the dude, nothing but bangers on this premium content. I'm gonna do one tonight, like I do it with Austin. It's called Whatever This Is, and we just break down it, and it's with him and Brad Binkley, and it goes deep, dude. If you go to patreon.com/cashdaddies, get in on that. If you need to put your money to work for you, it's the only way you're going to get out of this slave shit. Make your money work for you, and there's no better place to go than Howie's Homies at the Cash Daddies Patreon. Grab that real quick. What else do we got? T-shirts. Check out the T-shirts real quick. New T-shirts are in fact up. The Fuck Zuck. Nothing but bangers.
I love that.
Fuck Zuck. And then we also have, thank you, dude. And then we also have the what was the new one we just put up too? There was another one we just put up. I didn't see it there though, but there was another one. Nope.
You got a new one.
Well, no, you're waiting on the common sense.
No, go down there. Go down to the second page. There was another new one.
It must have gotten out of order because of the price changes.
Is that it? That's the only page? I thought there was another new one.
There's only 2 pages.
I guess I was wrong.
By the way, all the other ones are $14 instead of 20.
Discount,
so go stack up.
Can you show that Revolution will be podcasted? Can you zoom in on that just a little bit? I just want to.
That was one of the first shirts I ever made.
And Sam was right. It was a revolution. This election was due to a podcast.
Yeah.
It's rad.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right, guys. And all of our guys, it was a long podcast. I got a jam. Just check out all of our affiliates. We only add affiliates we think that will help you. Okay. Everything's there. Click on them, play around with them, and figure it out. Anything else?
Hit that like button, subscribe, and go check out my Extreme Martial Spot poker vlogs where I just lose money. And go check it out.
Love it. Johnny?
Check me out on Instagram, Johnny A. Woodard, still banned from, not just shadow banned, but fully banned from Twitter.
Ooh, dangerous.
And check out the new Broken Sam. It was a good one.
You guys go hard with that. Jeffrey Epstein team, Sam's dad loses his teeth.
Yeah. It's a crazy ass
His dad lost his teeth, yeah.
All right, guys, enjoy these highlights.
Here's a clip from the latest Broken Sim.
European people who listen to this, I love you guys. And you guys have to pull this back in. Do you guys see that, like, in Germany, you can't show anything Nazi, including swastika, unless you're shitting on the ADF.
Elon, yeah. Well, it was Elon.
Or Elon and the ADF.
They got Elon with that. Him with the carrying
unbelievable.
And then Trump, officially paused military aid to Ukraine today, which is
which will just be sent to Israel, which will just be sent to Ukraine. But I'm telling you, Johnny, I do feel like the people of this country have said no to Marxism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Many times.
And I think you're going to see them say no to Zionism. And I have way more faith in the right getting rid of their leaders that don't listen to them than I do the left.
The problem with Zionism, though, is you got the religion thing.
Yeah, but I still listen. The right for a very long time got rid of the crazies at the far right. Now, as a man of Christ, okay, I love thy neighbor. That's who I am. I'm not into hating. I'm never going to get into that. To hating people. I will never do that. Just because they're whatever group they are. I won't do that.
It hurts you to do that, too.
Yeah, it's not my style. But I think you're going to start seeing people really, really get tired of Zionism and Israel first. And I think it's coming.
We'll see. I hope you're right, but I think they're a little too clever to allow that.
Maybe.
The public.
Okay, here we go.
All right, so this is Casey Anthony. He's put out this video. By the way, looks fantastic.
By the way, killed a baby.
Yeah.
Do you have to remember that every time you look at?
Oh no. Officially, she did not kill a baby.
By trial, she did not.
Yeah.
But
so let's say she did not kill a baby. But
yeah,
Sam,
but
Sam thinks she killed a baby. Let's say that.
Yes, Sam. If you had to put money on it,
and yeah, anybody who has evidence, looked at the evidence, thinks she killed a baby. But wait, where are we here?
Okay.
She looks great.
Today is Saturday, March 1st, 2025. This is my first of probably many recordings on a series that I'm starting. I am a legal advocate. I am a researcher. I've been in the legal field since 2011.
Gee, I wonder what happened in 2011.
In this capacity, I feel that it's necessary.
By the way, I just want to say, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but that thing, researcher, is just something that a lot of people are appending to their names lately. That doesn't mean shit at all. Nothing.
Yeah, but you know what's so funny? And I don't think the left claims her either. But so funny because she's like, I'm a researcher, and the left makes fun of people who do their own research, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. No, you're right. All right, back to Casey.
If I'm going to continue to operate appropriately as a legal advocate, that I start to advocate for myself and also advocate for my daughter. For those of you who don't know, my name is Casey Anthony.
Yeah,
my
we all
daughter
know who
is
you
Haley
are.
Anthony. My parents are George and Cindy Anthony. This is not about them. This is not in response to anything that they have said or done. That's not to say that I'm not going to respond at some point to some of the things that they have said and done. The whole point of this is for me to...
Your own father jumped on the sword and said that he did things to you so that you could get leniency in your trial. Like, this is the problem.
Wait, you know that he said that just for that reason?
Well, I would say that.
Okay.
Because you remember when that chick in South Carolina let her...
And the car went into the water?
Yeah, they were like, yeah, I did all this stuff to her. She shouldn't be put to death. And it's just, again, we cannot come to... Like, even now, we're like, oh, she looks good. Our monkey DNA comes in, and it's like, that's why she killed somebody. I was getting stretched today, and I told the guy stretching me, Derek, I go, dude, you see how she looked? She looked pretty good. He goes, she killed a child. I go, okay, point to you.
Wait, are you still going to that stretching place?
Yeah, I get stretched all the time.
It's just a place where people stretch you out.
Yeah, stretch my legs. I just do my legs.
Your holes too? Or is it just
no, not my, he's not taking crowbar to my beehole.
Again, to reintroduce myself. I'm doing this both personally for me, but in a professional capacity.
What?
Moving forward,
in your car?
The majority of what you will see will be me speaking in a professional capacity. She said there's a reason for that,
because it's in her car for a reason.
My goal is to continue to help give a voice to people, to give people tools.
Also, does she have a right side drive car? Does she have like a foreign import car?
No. It's very weird with cameras. It looks like it's flipped.
She mirrored it.
All the time you see me do those drive-bys, it looks like I'm driving on
some apps mirror the thing. Yeah, it's mirrored footage.
And resources that they can utilize so they actually know where they can turn to.
But what are you advocating for?
So with that,
it makes no
please
sense.
Join me on Substack. If you...
She's advocating for the classy ladies OnlyFans is what she's advocating.
What is she... I don't... Explain to me what you're advocating for.
She's a researcher.
What made you make this video? What are you researching?
She's promoting her smart ladies
OnlyFans. Right, but
OnlyFans.
what is she doing?
I think it's probably going to be shit about like legal issues that she's going to ramble about legal issues. Sounds
well, you know, it's like that fat chick who sued Lyft.
Yes.
Who's
somebody says that last one, by the way, the second one that we played was not real. Someone said that guy does comedy sketches. I don't know whether
which one.
The second one where the guy was talking about the sensor in his car. Someone said that was not real. I couldn't confirm.
I don't know. I don't remember the video.
The guy was like, "No, you see, look on the dashboard. See, it says." Yeah, someone said that's not. I don't. But the first one we know was real because that woman was trying to sue people.
Yeah. She lost, but now she's made over.
She already lost.
Oh, she already lost, and they say she's made almost $1 million on OnlyFans. Guys are disgusting.
Oh my!
Her legs have backs.
Oh, that's sad for us. All right, let's finish this here.
Questions. I will set up an email address where we can correspond directly. Up until this point, that has never happened.
I like that.
And it's only going to be on a limited basis regarding legal issues, legal matters.
That is, don't send me your dick is what that means right
no
there.
Dick pics.
Please, no dick pics.
One of the main reasons that I'm doing this, there are people close to me who have been targeted and attacked recently. There are also people close to me who have had some recent things occur. And
like your daughter who you killed?
Yeah.
And when necessary, people needed to step up, myself included. So as a proponent for the LGBTQ community, for legal
now she's a lesbian?
Women's rights.
I don't know.
Yeah. Are you?
I feel that it's important that I use this platform that was thrust upon me and now look at as a blessing as opposed to the curse that it has been since.
Does she have the turn signal on?
Here, play.
2008. With that, these aren't going to be perfect. They're not going to be edited. Most of the
She's got the fucking turn signal on.
And they're not going to be short. But I am proverbially standing in the light.
So she literally, dude, just pulled over to make this video. She's like, I'm going to do it right now. I've been waiting, so I got to do it.
And I don't care if most of the cameras on the sunroof and the window. I don't care. I'm like in the bottom two-thirds.
You know what happened, dude? One of her friends called her and was like, girl, you've been thinking about this you just got to do it. You got to do it right now.
Her boyfriend's like, I don't care what she did. She's hot.
Oh,
I'm
dude,
gonna keep hitting it.
Yeah, her boyfriend's all about it. Yeah, and
So
then she's like, I'm just going to do it.
Imagine if you brought her home one night. Guys, I want you to meet my girlfriend, Casey.
Yeah, well, you don't call her K. You call her like K or something like that, so your parents don't quite. And
C-A, K?
Yeah, hi, guys, this is K. And then later they're like, boy, she looks up. Did she? No. Well,
she's too hot to be her,
no,
right?
it's not Casey. That's not Casey.
Yeah,
She's in jail, right? Because she killed her daughter. She's in jail, surely. I thought they put her to death.
She's shiny.
Yeah, it's what happens when you get in your 30s. You got to start putting like cleansers and stuff and like creams on your face.
Yeah.
Embracing this piece, still going to keep.
I wish she'd embrace my piece. You know
Oh, Johnny.
My privacy intact.
You just lost all the female
Very
listeners.
comfortable with my car.
What female listeners?
And
we've had people say they love the show.
I could get real comfortable in her car if you know what I'm saying.
Johnny.
I will explain in great detail why it's so important for people to protect their privacy. It's not just important to public figures, it's even more important to private individuals. And with the current climate in our country especially, it's that much more important, which is why I am utilizing the Substack platform. Yes, I am advertising this and publishing this on TikTok, possibly also through other meta platforms, but my intention is to separate from that and showcase even more why Substack is such an important resource for people to utilize.
Tomorrow, Substack's like, yeah, we canceled your account.
I appreciate your time, and we'll see how this goes.
Doesn't this sound a lot like she got a bag from Substack, though? Like, because she's telling people to get off of social media.
Why would Substack do that?
I don't know.
I don't see any positive on Substack's side.
What? You remember
and they're
that?
like, dude, we're so pro free speech, we let baby killers
If
out.
you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, subscribe to Broken Simulation in your podcasting app or check us out at youtube.com/Sam Tripoli.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Tinfoil hat.